decision to adopt a resolution which calls for the boycotting of all Israeli institutions and researchers affiliated to the Israeli Defense Force. UWC spokesperson Hassan Abadir says they stand in solidarity with Palestine.
The convocation and Senate's call for academic disengagement is fully supported by the Council. The SRC also fully backs this motion, reflecting the collective stance of the university community. This motion is a unified stand by UWC to support Palestine, advocating for justice and human rights.
The top story at 3 o'clock, EFF Secretary General Marshal Dlamini has been handed a suspended sentence for the assault of a police official after the State of the Nation address in 2019. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhalemeli.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Proteas ready for tough final. Mamila confirms permanent role at Baraka FC and Box revive All Blacks tours. More details at 3:30.
Hey there! Need to know your TV license balance but don't want to wait? No sweat! Just send a quick SMS with your ID or TV license number to 44210. Remember, standard SMS rates apply. And presto! Your balance pops right up anytime, anywhere. It's as easy as pie. So why procrastinate? Give it a try and get your info in a flash. T's and C's apply.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
22-time champions Toulouse want to rubber stamp their dominance with the 23rd title. But Bodo Begley have a massive point to prove that they didn't reach their first final by mistake. This is the top 14 final. Stade Toulousain collides with Union Bodo Begley this Friday 28 June at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And it certainly is the National Pulse, and I can tell you now, just about every single day that we host the show, the National Pulse, I ask this question: what is it that moves the National Pulse? And last night or late yesterday, it was a case of, do we have a government of national unity, or are we set for a government of disunity? Things appear to have changed. There's talk, and it's talk, that somehow the ANC and the DA have come together in some form or the other. It's not confirmed, and they will finally reach a deal that would be significant enough for them to say we can go ahead, and then for the president to then announce that all-important cabinet, that executive, that effectively would determine the running of the country from a national scale. But that's just one thing. There are many other things. There's still continued issues of, if not load shedding, certainly water restrictions. No, not even water restrictions, like no water in many parts of the city of Johannesburg. And that's a city that's been, billed as Africa's world-class city, right, or the world-class African city. Yes, it's got to do with maintenance, but some of the places, because of maintenance, 3 days, 4 days, maybe touching on 5 days, no water at all. That's another thing that's a huge cause for concern. Then, as someone said the other day to me, well, you know what? If you're really unhappy with who's going to lead between the ANC and the DA, or between the MK party and maybe the EFF, well, imagine the choice of the Americans. How bad can it be? You've got Donald Trump and you've got Joe Biden. Well, we don't have that sort of a choice, do we? So the world's very, very different on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. But my name's Ashraf Garda. This is the National Pulse. As always, when the issues come up, you can comment and share what you think drives the pulse today. 086 2032, and you can call in, but text via WhatsApp, text or voice notes. It's 0614 104 107, 0614 104 107. If you're tweeting, you can tweet as well as on Facebook, and you know that, right? The hashtag is the National Pulse, but you can tag SFM Radio and do tag me, Ashraf Garda. And always love the fact that you engage people in South Africa, people from all around the world listening on streaming live, people listening on the SABC Plus app as well. If you're listening, I'm giving you a thumbs up, because you know the whole show is also carried certainly on the Twitter or X platform. It's visually live as well. So there are many ways that you can engage with us, and love to be a part of it. And you certainly are a part of it right now. So tell me where you are and what is it that you do. Now, I'll tell you what, one of the things that we do, you know this, a few days ago, I spoke about the SAFM Youth Takeover. Now, today is effectively the last working day for this show for the month of June, so Youth Month, right? And as part of that, we've been pushing and plugging on air and inviting younger people from the ages of 18 to 35 to not just visit us in studio, but to be active participants in studio. So, I mean, here's the challenge for them: active participants in the National Pulse, which suggests it's not just on the show, but for the whole country, really. That's what we want, isn't it? And that's why we've got two people here today. There's been others on Stephen's show. You may have heard them in the morning, and it's been great to do that. So I've got two people today with us. Shanti Khoza as first person, and then Nokukanya Ngola, right? Both of you. So let's get it right. Shanti, welcome. Welcome to my show. Welcome to your show.
Thank you so much, Ashraf.
Right. And Nokukanya, thanks as well, and welcome again to your show.
Thank you.
Right. So you're going to do sport.
Yes.
Right? And you'll join me for the current affairs issues that we're going to be talking about. But I thought before we get into it, just to give people an idea of what we've done, we've done a pitch on air. We've invited people from ages of 18 to 35 to respond. We've and to make their pitch why they should be here. We've also done it on other social media platforms. So many people have done that, and ultimately these the two people we have here is a reflection of what the production team has said. Okay, let's get them in studio. So if you are here, it's thanks to the entire National Pulse production team that's decided they want to have you guys here. So first things first. Let's tell us about yourselves, right? So I'm going to start with you, Shanti, only because I've met you before.
Yes, we have met.
Give us a quick insight. Where did we meet so people know?
Okay, so we met in 2021. I was part of a panelist at the Great Star Awards where you were a speaker as well. So we met there, and this came after I was recognized as one of the top 10 most employable students in South Africa in the ABSA Great Star Awards in 2020.
One of the top 10 most employable students. You do have a job, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What do you do now?
I'm a business analyst.
Okay.
I'm a business analyst in petrochemicals, oil and gas.
Okay, so you're in the mining industry,
Mining,
basically.
yes.
Very, very important. Okay, great. Now, why are you here? I mean, why did you respond to the call?
Firstly, I responded because I've interacted with you before, and I know how passionate you are about South Africa, and you know your slogan that says, "When I succeed, South Africa succeeds." So I responded to the call because I've been following you, and then I saw that you were calling for young people. Personally, I'm passionate for radio. I've been working with campus radio station throughout my varsity years. I worked with Rhodes Music Radio as a presenter and producer. I worked with VOW FM as well as a producer. So I thought, this is a much bigger platform that would get me to experience this other side of talk radio. I also did talk shows as well during my varsity.
Oh, maybe I can just step away and take the weekend off. I mean,
no, please don't. I'm also here to learn from you as well.
Great. Okay, so that's why you are here. Now, what about Nokukanya? Well, give me your story.
Oh, okay. I'm a UFS first year student. I'm doing journalism. Yes.
But that's not all. I mean, you're interested in sports specifically, right?
Yes.
I understand. Tell me about that interest.
I've always wanted to do sports, but because of my weight.
You mean as a player or as a reporter? Which one?
No, as a player.
Okay,
Yes.
So you're not doing that anymore.
No,
All
I'm
right.
here now.
And your interest in then sports broadcasting?
Yes.
Yeah, tell me about your interest in broadcasting.
I think I got inspired by Dumi. So
Okay. You know Tumi. Are you guys chummies?
not chommies.
Okay, you followed her career.
Yes.
Right. So when you heard this call out for 18 to 35s, young South Africans as part of the SAFM Youth Takeover, you thought what?
I was happy. Then I wanted to give it a chance and see I was so excited about this.
Okay, fabulous. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a lot to comment on, lots to talk about, and we'll give you guys a chance. I mean, I know you'll do mainly sport,
Yes.
I think, right? And you'll do mainly non-sporting issues, I think.
Yes.
But, as you can already gather, a lot happens behind the scenes here. And I know you've got your families as well here, so
Yes.
people taking photographs and videos, and it's all fine, which gives you... So let me give you my quick tip. Someone asked me the other day, what's it like being a talk show host? And my answer, in many ways, it reflects both your interests. I said, hosting a 3-hour talk show is like running a mental marathon every single day of the week.
No, definitely.
That's what it is, okay? Right. So that's where we are. Right. By the way, from an audience point of view, you can certainly engage. And perhaps as we sit here now, do you have any thoughts, any opinions in terms of where we should go now with the government of national unity and the two dominant parties, but we know many other parties are part of it. But also, did you see the Trump-Biden debate? A lot of criticism for the incumbent President Joe Biden, who, remember, replaced Donald Trump before, and many are suggesting that when he's sitting in the Democratic Party, they need to make a replacement ASAP because he performed so poorly. That's some opinions. Many polls have the same story, but others suggest otherwise in terms of, no, hold it, man. He started off slow, but he came back very, very strongly. And those are the issues we're going to be talking about, right? But that will come up later on. Right, okay, what we'll do first up, what we'll do is we're going to comment on that issue firstly, as we speak to a guest from abroad who's actually watched that particular debate, and we'll get his thoughts, and then I want to certainly get your thoughts as well. All of that comes up after this.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Okay, you may really want to make a note of this. Do you think you're paying too much on your car insurance? Well, 56-year-old Dylan said no to sky-high insurance premiums, and he's now insured without insurance, and he pays 756 rands a month to insure his white 2023 Hival Julian S. To follow in Dylan's footsteps, you can SMS out to 30754 for a quote. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSB. T's and C's apply.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
By the way, we're gonna talk about cricket as well later on, right? Because and I'm talking about the South African team, the Proteas, playing in the World Cup finals, and that will come up on Saturday. Remember, about 4:30 tomorrow, so like just about an hour from now, right? Okay. There's been some feedback, by the way, from the tech team, and you see here you are led to saying check out the signal issues in terms of the feed that's not coming out very clearly, not on air, but certainly people following it on the Twitter Spaces. So hopefully we'll fix that up in a moment or so, right? Okay. So you may be aware of one of the big issues that we've had, certainly around the issues regarding this debate around Joe Biden, as well as Donald Trump, in terms of what for them is a very, very important debate. I want to just check out, in fact, if we have the guest there, and if we do, we will connect to that guest right after this.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, we'll connect with the guest shortly. We'll do that just in a moment or so. What we do need to do is just pick up on, because you're going to speak to that guest first up. Well, maybe let me do this. Let me just introduce. Have you got the notes there? And I'm checking out from your side where we are. And then we're going to, well, we do now finally have the guest with us, Professor Scott Lucas, who's a political analyst who has been following this story extensively from the University of Birmingham. We've chatted to him before, right? So, Prof. Lucas, appreciate your time once again. Hi.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. Okay, now just for today, because of what we have, which is called the SAFM Youth Takeover, it's not just myself. We have Shanti Koza is with us as well. So, in fact, she's going to ask the first question or two around this very important debate that took place overnight in the USA. Shanti, you up for it? And I'll leave it to you.
Hi, Prof. Lucas, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for being here to chat about this.
Yes, Prof. Just given how President Joe Biden performed last night, what do you think is the likelihood that America can have Donald Trump as president again?
Look, Shanti, I'm going to ask you and all the great listeners out there to pray for America.
Okay, I'll tell you what you do. Since you said pray for America, maybe you have to give us a reason why we must pray for America. So maybe there's a clip of last night's debate, right? That I want to play, and then you can ask that question again, and maybe beyond that, and we take it from there. So here it is.
Right here in Atlanta, two presidents met on the debate stage at a moment of crossroads for our country. Both former President Trump and President Joe Biden presenting two very different visions for the future of our country. Let's get right to the biggest moments tonight. And we've got to start right here. Some voters have expressed concern about President Biden's age and his ability to keep focus. Tonight, at times, the president seemed to lose his train of thought, including in his answer early in the debate to a question about the economy.
We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
But that was not always the tenor of the debate. There were also moments of high-energy exchanges like this one, where Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden clashed over one of the biggest issues of this election, the future of abortion access after the Supreme Court's 2022 decision overturning Roe v. Wade.
He can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat-run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen. You're lying. That is simply not true. That Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period.
Okay, so that's the clip of of that debate. Some parts of the debate, of course. I mean, of course, it's much longer than that. We know that, right? Now, let's go back to where we started earlier on. I mean, so you asked that important question. Perhaps you should ask it again, just to re-emphasize the point. Yeah.
So my question was that: what is the likelihood that America can have Donald Trump as president again, looking at how President Joe Biden performed last night?
Let me answer that excellent question by again asking you and the listeners to pray for America. And pray for all of us, because what we had last night was, on the one side, a very poor performance by the sitting U.S. president, who appeared frail, who struggled to make a concise answer, and on the other hand, a person who may become president, who is a convicted felon, who is a sex abuser, who is a fraudster, who tried less than 4 years ago to hold power in an attempted coup. And last night, from start to finish, he lied. He lied about these critical issues that face America and the world. Whether you talk about women's rights, including abortion, whether you talk about immigration, whether you talk about the economy, whether you talk about the COVID pandemic, whether you talk about even his past relationships with porn stars, such as Stormy Daniels. And most importantly, he lied about his role in January 6, 2021, when people that he encouraged stormed the U.S. Capitol to try to overturn an election and basically rip up the U.S. Constitution. And I never like to predict the outcome of an election.
Okay.
But I am fearful for America because I think rather than discussing the issues, rather than discussing the record of the Trump administration, the record of the Biden administration, the American media are going to be pulled into an incessant narrative about old Joe, old Joe, old Joe, where they focus on the age and the mental state of Joe Biden, but they ignore the age and the mental state of a man who might become president, Donald Trump.
And I like the fact that you are mentioning his age, because most people say that his age is his worst enemy, as he can be incoherent at some times, and I think you highlighted that with the lies. What's your take on that?
You know, I'm as soon as I finish talking to you all today, I'm going to call my father in Florida, and we're going to play cards on the internet for 2 hours. And he's 88 years old, and he's still a lot smarter than I'll ever be. I think age is just a number. I think the question, whether you talk about Joe Biden, 81, or Donald Trump, 78, is, are they competent? I think up until, I think the Biden administration has achieved quite a lot. I think it's the most significant administration in American history since the 1960s, whether you agree or disagree with him on his foreign policy. But I think there's a question which is growing about whether he can be competent for the rest of this campaign. I think on the side of Donald Trump, I think there are serious questions about not his age, but his mental state. It's not just the repeated lying that takes place. You might have heard him refer to 2 cognitive ability tests he took when he was president. He took those because he had just been hospitalized, and there were worries about his mental state of health. And I think the way that Trump bullies and the way that he insults, the way that he cannot really engage in dialogue with anyone, I think you have to get beyond age in discussing 2 things. One is, what are the issues that we need addressing right now, such as climate change, such as the war in the Middle East, such as relations between the U.S. and Africa, and 2, who is competent to deal with that on a basis that encourages dialogue rather than division.
Okay, let me come in here, Prof. Lucas. So, I mean, I've heard what you said about the 2 things and certainly praying for America, but maybe here's the big question to you, right? All things considered, who's the right candidate for the USA right now?
Neither one of them. I'm going to say that point blank. Neither one of them. I think Donald Trump is a force, is someone who wants to break the American system, which has a lot of issues. We've got a lot of issues with what America's done in the past and in the present, but it's still a system which has served the country well for 250 years. And Donald Trump wants to take that system down. I think Donald Trump is a threat to the world. When you talk about pulling America out of alliances in Europe, whether you talk about his rather incoherent approach to dealing with issues, whether it be with China, whether it deal with African security, whether it deal with, for example, the Middle East. But I think that Joe Biden at this point, regrettably, because I think his administration has done quite a bit, whether you talk about coronavirus relief, infrastructure, green energy, trying to rebuild America's relations with allies, I think regrettably, he just does not have the strength to get through a campaign in the next 4 years as president.
Okay, so if you're saying neither, the reality it has to be one of them anyway, right? Unless one of them is withdrawn ahead of the election, so it'll still be the 2 parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. Then I'm not going to ask you to pick a winner now because it's really too early and it's a bit futile to do that. But the more important one is then what would be the big sign you'd be looking for coming out of the USA after that election?
I think, first of all, again, to address your question, at the end of the day, I would prefer it if the Democrats, even at this late point, encourage Biden to stand down for another candidate. But if forced with the choice between Trump and Biden, you don't just elect a person, you elect an administration. And for that reason, because of the threat that Trump poses, I I personally would vote for the more secure option, which would be the Democrats. That being said, I think already, and I know this is true from friends and colleagues, that there are governments around the world that are making contingency plans if Trump comes into office. Because, again, we must be honest here. Donald Trump is someone who does not like many leaders, peoples in Europe. He doesn't like many leaders or peoples in Africa. He's been very derogatory about Africa. The people he admires are the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, and especially the Russian leader, Vladimir Putin. And I think that admiration for those who are autocrats, and indeed Trump's own wish, as he put it on day one, to come in as a dictator, I think that's what I foresee as being not only the biggest threat to America since our Civil War in 1865 in peacetime, I think it may be one of the biggest threats that the world has faced.
Okay. We're on to news time, so very quick answer, just in 30 seconds, Prof. Lucas. So how much importance do you attach to that debate that takes place in the USA? South Africans don't have a debate where the candidates go head to head. How much importance do you place, or do the electorate place in that debate? But you've got 30 seconds to answer it.
It is a key turning point, because what it does, it puts into place the narrative which replaces all the issues with simply one and only one statement over and over again, which is Joe Biden is too old to be president. And I'm afraid that kind of mud obscures Trump's lies, and it sticks to basically say that Biden cannot be reelected.
Okay, and that's where we're going to be Prof. Scott Lucas, who's a political analyst from the University of Birmingham. Fascinating insights into what may happen, but he basically saying pray for America. Both candidates not good enough, and if he has to make a push, he hopes that Biden steps down ahead of that election. Lots to consider there. Let's get the news headlines now with Madupi. It's 3:30.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, screening for the Mpox is underway at points of entry across the country, including at the Lebombo port of entry with Mozambique. EFF-SG Marshal Dlamini has been handed a suspended sentence for the assault of a police official after the State of the Nation address in 2019. And the President of Argentina has welcomed Parliament's approval of his package of major economic reforms, which have prompted mass protests since he took office last year. Details of these and other stories at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. In Bedfordview, the N12 R24 westbound is queuing on both routes towards the N3 southbound ramp at Gululis Interchange. The N3 northbound is slow moving approaching the N12 east off ramp at Gululis Interchange, and the N3 southbound has a crash reported at Van Buren Road. Slow moving traffic reported throughout the Crown City West area, and Dalmas Road northbound in Pretoria is slow moving towards Pidding Road. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pinetown is slow moving. That's at Marion Hill Toll Plaza. The N3 westbound in Camperdown has a crash before Mlaws Road. The N3 westbound has a crash at Ashburton causing delays, and slow moving traffic reported throughout that central Durban CBD area. And then Umgeni Road northbound is slow moving towards Sandile Tuzi Road. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound has a crash near Upper Hillwood Road. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road. On the N7 in Citrusdal, there's a fatal crash reported at Pickenierskloof Pass, so you're asked to expect delays there, and Batencross Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapeli.
Right, so normally around this time, Nokukanya, I normally say to me, the Minister of Sport, you can go ahead. But in fact, I'm going to say the Minister of Sport to me, as well as the Deputy Minister of Sport, Nokukanya, because as you've heard the name, Nokukanya is part of this SFM Youth Takeover, so she will co-host the daily sports reports. Right, go ahead.
So we tag teaming this one, and it's going to be very interesting. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. We're starting this hour off with cricket.
It's all systems go for the T20 final, where the Proteas will face India at the Kingston Oval tomorrow.
And Captain Aidan Markram says because of their experience, they are not worried about the pitch conditions in Bridgetown ahead of the final.
I think because we've been doing it for most of our careers, you jump from venue to venue where conditions are quite different. So it's again just adapting to whatever's in front of you and playing the pitch and the game that's in front of you. So we won't look too much into it. We'll try find ways to always take wickets with the ball, and from a batting point of view, try get to a score that's defendable. So not looking too much into conditions. Like I've mentioned, both teams have to play on the same wicket, and ultimately, if you can develop some plans and come up with some plans on the day that can give you a good chance to win, then hopefully it works out that way.
All right, that match gets underway at 4:30 tomorrow. On the other hand,
the Protea women were in action today in the one of the test against India.
And India posted 525 for 4 in their first innings at stumps. Shafali Verma smashed 205, while Smriti Manhanda added 149 as India reached their massive score at close of day 1. Then moving on to football, Morgan Mamila says that Baraka FC chairman Kurishi has asked him to continue as head coach next season. The future of Dan Malisela still hangs in the balance after he was suspended by the club over allegations that he had been offering players to rival clubs, which prompted Mamila taking over the remaining matches during the PSL playoffs.
No, he asked me to continue because he said his exact word was that we promoted this team together. So if we did it in 2015, what's stopping us now? And one thing for sure, that's the team that has made me who I am. And I can't say no to a big project like that.
And elsewhere?
Kylian Mbappe is back in France starting lineup for Tuesday's Euro 2024 clash with Poland. His first appearance since suffering a broken nose against Austria just over a week.
And Mbappe got injured in the win over Austria on the 17th of June and did not play any part in last Friday's goalless draw with the Netherlands. Then in rugby,
SA Rugby have confirmed that an agreement has been reached with the New Zealand to host the full-figured All Blacks tour for the first time in 30 years.
So the All Blacks will tour South Africa in 2026 and play a 3-test series against the Springboks. New Zealand will also face the DHL Stormers, Bulls, Lions and Sharks, as well as South Africa A team. The possibility of including the Mara All Blacks or All Blacks A and Black Ferns on the tour is also being explored. It will be the first time that New Zealand tours South Africa since 1996, with the All Blacks winning the Test series 2-1. Then finally, in women in sports, top seed Iga Swiatek was handed a tricky first round test at Wimbledon as the world number 1 was drawn against American Sofia Kenin. Emma Raducanu, on the other hand, has been drawn against Russia's Ekaterina Alexandrova, and women's second seed Coco Gauff will play in an All-American first round tie against Caroline Dolehide, and third seed Arina Sabalenka takes on America's Mina Bektas. And with that said, it is a wrap from both of us. We'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Well, not quite yet. I mean, are you going to the Wanderers tomorrow? Because I mean, that was your plan, right?
Yes, I am.
Definitely going.
Definitely going. And I see a lot of people on X were saying, what about us in Cape Town? What about us in Pretoria? But the Wanderers has or is ICC approved. So therefore, the Wanderers is the one is under ICC.
But I mean, here's the thing. I mean, my house is not ICC approved. And if I want to have 20 people in my home, that's really my business. So
Why
which
not?
goes back to the point about what about us in Cape Town? What about you getting together wherever you are in the country, Cape Town, Khalishiwe, Kimberley, I don't know, wherever you are in the country, and getting together in big groups. And if you want to get a big stadium, just contact the stadium and get them to sort it out.
And don't forget to wear your Proteas jersey while you're at it.
Well, why don't you have yours now?
I was wearing it yesterday.
Okay,
I'll wear it tomorrow.
You're washing it for tomorrow. I got that. Okay, we'll chat again in an hour, right?
Thank
you.
Are you ready to buy or build your first home or buy a stand anywhere in South Africa? If you are a South African citizen, you and your spouse have never benefited from a government housing subsidy program, and your household income is between 3,501 and 22,000 Rand per month, your dream can be realized by applying for a first home finance subsidy. To apply, just log into the First Home Finance application online portal at firsthomefinance.co.za or call a call center agent on 010-085-2199 to assist you for free with completing your First Home Finance online application. Beware, applying for First Home Finance subsidy is free. Do not pay anyone when applying for the subsidy. The NHFC is an agency of the National Department of Human Settlements.
Hello, Your Choice Online.
Hi, I need you to help me make a choice.
Well, with Ford, you get to make your own choices. Like on brand new Ford Ranger XL, XLT or Wildtrak Supercabs from only $7,999 per month with no deposit needed. There's a flexible deal for every Supercab at your nearest Ford dealership today. Your Ford, your choice. TNCs apply.
11 Southern African football outfits and a guest nation from the East, Kenya, are summoned to the battlefield for the 23rd edition of the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2024. 12 nations are on a dramatic search for the ultimate regional glory in Gqeberha, Mzansi's Eastern Cape Province. Experience the COSAFA Cup action from 26 June to 7 July, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, we're going to talk, by the way, to Dr. Fidel Adam shortly around the big water shortages in many parts of the country. Some of it maintenance linked, but I know certainly the city of Johannesburg, many of the suburbs, maintenance or not, they've been out of water for 3 or 4 days, like zero, nothing, okay? Then we'll also chat to Aslam Kota, the cricket commentator, ahead of that World Cup final tomorrow. But we've had comments about Donald Trump, naturally so. So let's get some of those comments regarding the U.S. election.
Good evening, SAFM. I hear a lot of people are saying maybe here in South Africa we should all follow Americans and have presidential candidates for debate. I mean, I just don't see the relevance. I mean, how is that going to help us? To have someone who's a good debater doesn't make you a good leader. I understand that Trump can debate way better than Joe Biden. But then again, if we were to elect the one who made better arguments, then what? Does that tell us that that particular person is a leader? I don't think so. I don't even think President Ramaphosa is a good debater. No, but I think he's a great person. And I think he's a good president. Because I know people who can debate way more than him, but they will never lead us the way that he leads us. Thank you. This is Lusuke in the Eastern Cape.
That's such an interesting one. You want to add to that, Shanti? You heard that?
I think it's more like presentation skills. Being a good presenter, being a good speaker doesn't really guarantee you to be a good leader. You know, some people are just good in word, but actions speak otherwise.
But the question is, how important is it to be a good presenter if you want to be a leader of a country?
It is extremely important because you have to portray your message, you have to send the message out there, and people need to receive it. So it is extremely important.
Well, I concur. So here's the point. You may not win a debate, but what it tells you is a leader, and yes, I mean, I think about, for example, Ramaphosa, I look at Jacob Zuma, I look at Nelson Mandela, I'd certainly look at the current incumbent Ramaphosa right now. And we have Thabo Mbeki before that, of course, remember. I think Mbeki was probably the most articulate, if I can get that, right? Mm-hmm. But the question is, if you as a leader aren't able to communicate your leadership message, that's a disconnect. And I think when we talk about your ability to present, it's your ability to communicate a message. If you fail to do that, you'll be good in the boardroom, you'll be good strategically. But the job of a leader is to interface privately and to interface publicly. And if you are found wanting on the public spaces, you're going to be literally that, found wanting. I mean, that's my thoughts, right? Yeah. Okay, let's get another comment. And it links once again to obviously the issue of that Donald Trump debate.
Yeah, Ashraf, that particular campaigning talks between Biden and Trump, for me, it could develop a personal attack, and it could turn up nasty or unhealthy. So I wouldn't, unfortunately, go for that, you see. So, yeah, that's That's my point in that particular or on that particular score. Thank you, Willie here in Kuma.
Thank you for that. Could turn out nasty. Would you agree with that? I mean, would you like the concept of a debate or not at all?
I think it's important to note that as much as South Africa doesn't have debates, we do have campaigns, we do have rallies that political parties hold to relay their message to to the people they are leading. So we don't have that, but we do have an opportunity for these leaders to communicate their message.
So they still do talk. They just don't talk to each other. Yeah.
Yes, they do talk.
And do you think we should have a debate?
It would be interesting to have one.
Can you just imagine?
It would be very interesting.
I mean,
but I'm also thinking because South Africa, we have so many political parties, and I wonder how that would turn about. Do we have like the top 5 debating, how that would go?
Absolutely. In fact, many say there's a debate right now. I see it every day between Ramaphosa and John Steenhuisen. The only difference, it's not a debate on air, but they're certainly doing it via newsletters and their correspondence. We just have to read the debates. That's what it is.
Which is very interesting.
Absolutely. Let's get on to other issues that are really important, the issues of water. Water in South Africa, water in Johannesburg. We chatted to Dr. Fidel Adam a few days ago. In fact, she's the executive manager of Water Can, as in CAN. And we then spoke about the problems in the city. Now, that problem appears to be exacerbated. One part was about maintenance, which I think is critically important. But the other part of it is the maintenance was supposed to be almost a throttled go slow in certain areas. But there are many areas, including my own area, by the way. It's 4 days now. Zero water. So what do we make of this? Dr. Fidel Adam with me. Good chatting to you once again. Hi, Fidel.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Right now, we do have part of not just the listeners, but Shanti Koza is with me as part of what is called the SFM Youth Takeover. At some stage, she feels strongly about water issues. She's going to comment, right, as well, just so that you know. Now, I understand that you had a meeting today, right, Fidel, or you were part of a meeting that took place. Who was it with, and what's come out of it?
Okay, so yesterday's meeting was a water forum meeting which involved various government departments. So it had Rand Water, Joburg Water, Department of Water and Sanitation, and then of course for the first time we had the City of Joburg, which is fantastic. And then we had a range of civil society groups and organizations that had joined the meeting as well. We were about 45 people. Yes. And the key focus was, the City of Joburg, we've been having water woes for now, 2 years? And the Water Forum was established in November last year to deal with some of the water woes, and this is a continuation of that. So we're trying to get to where we have action on the ground, that we can change things and ensure that we can hold people accountable for things on the ground.
So talk about water woes. Let's stay with what I know. I know there's been a maintenance issue, and we've spoken about it. Being proactive, but as result of that, there's also been many parts of the city of Johannesburg without water like for 3-4 days. Did that come out? It has to. Can you explain what's the story there?
So the first thing is that the maintenance is on the Rand Water side, right? So it's in the bulk water supply side. And, well, they did say there'll be low pressure, but the problem is that in the Joburg water infrastructure side, we've been having water outages already before this maintenance began. A lot of the reservoirs are empty, and if they do get filled, the water gets used almost immediately. So the challenge that we're trying to understand is that the planning, while Rand Water says they've planned well, and that might be the case, for such maintenance, we needed Joburg Water to also do proper planning. So they claim that there are 85 tanks out there, there are JoJo tanks, and they are trying. But there are many areas that don't have water tanks, and the water tanks are arriving like at 9 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. So there needs to be a revamp of how they're actually rolling out water, because this is not going to go away until this maintenance is complete.
Well, so I hear you. So I mean, is that the problem? They underestimated that there was a problem before, and there's a lack of communication. Did they explain that in mitigation, to say, sorry, we underestimated?
No, they didn't. And I don't think that they feel that they did. They feel that they did the right thing. But you can't, we don't know for how long they were planning this, because the communication of this maintenance, Ashraf, for me, was just like 3 or 2 weeks before it actually happened. And that's not enough time for people to prepare.
Absolutely.
And also for Joburg Water to be on board as well to say that this is how we're going to deal with it, and if things go wrong, this is how we're going to deal with it.
And that's why we don't really know who to ask questions to. But let me bring in Shanti Khoza, who's part of the SFM Youth Takeover. Shanti, go ahead with your question.
I'm actually very passionate about this water issue because I know when I was a student in Makanda, there was just no water. We had to buy drinking water. And I know, like you mentioned, we've had days, Secunda, and we also go for days without water.
Yeah, wow.
So my question now is that is Johannesburg now following the routes of Eastern Cape and Secunda, where there's just going to be a point where you used to not having water? Is this a national or provincial problem? And how is the current situation when it comes to water outages? How worse can it go from here?
Okay, Fidia, you can answer that, yeah?
Yeah, so that's a bigger question. It's a very good question, because firstly, the issue in Makanda was also linked to issues of corruption and mismanagement. So they had funds to fix a water treatment plant, and it didn't happen, so now you can't drink the water in Makanda from the tap. I think the water shortages in the Eastern Cape were very much about a prolonged drought that we've experienced in the country, and it is going to happen more frequently, and it's going to be harsher in terms of the kind of climate change and the impacts we're going to experience through that. What we're going through in Johannesburg, and yes, is also a national issue, is a failure to upkeep the maintenance of our infrastructure for almost 10 years. And while we're experiencing all the woes here in Johannesburg, this is a countrywide issue. We know it's happening in all the major cities in Gauteng. We know eThekwini is going through that, and even parts of Cape Town are also having to deal with wastewater that is flowing into rivers and streams.
And that is a big crisis. So very quick one before we wrap up, Ferial. And maybe the most fundamental question to most people listening right now is like, if we don't have water today and yesterday and the day before, will we have water tonight or tomorrow morning if you're living in the city of Joburg?
So we've been trying to get an idea of, so that's the other thing, Ashraf, is that the transparency of information or access to information has been quite frustrating for us on the ground. Simple things like getting an idea, because, Joburg Water would say that Econof is now, or Randwood would say Econof is now pumping at 83%. So surely at 83%, some of the reservoirs should be filling up. But up until this morning, our understanding that many of those reservoirs were still empty. So what is really happening? We are struggling to get to the bottom of it and struggling to find those answers.
Okay, all I can think about is bridge over troubled waters. Let's leave it at that. It's a huge issue indeed. Dr. Frida Ledem, I'm sure we're going to have many more conversations around that and water can, because at the moment it's a case of water can't. We really are struggling.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand, or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Durban is open for business and investment. A large delegation from the United States of America, including captains of industry, business, investors, finances, decision makers, and high-profile leaders will attend the 2024 Resurgence Durban Conference to explore and maximize investment opportunities in Durban. Be part of the Resurgence Durban Conference taking place at the Durban ICC from the 17th to the 21st of July 2024. Durban is forging ahead with its plan of action that is aimed at boosting trade and investments within South Africa, the African continent, and the rest of the world. Businesses must register now to exhibit at the conference. Closing date is the 30th of June 2024. To register for the Resurgence Durban Conference and for more information, visit www.resurgenceconference.org.
Do you remember the cool times of Sports Buzz?
Coming up on Sports
Buzz used to be the go-to young people sports show in Mzansi Africa. The multi-sport award-winning youth magazine show. A great platform that profiled young athletes and teams. The glory days of Sports Buzz are back in a newly revamped youth sports show with a wow vibe.
Goats like us.
Yeah, GOATs, greatest of all time. Experience youth excellence in sports, profiling of active athletes and teams, latest news in the world of youth sports, the active voice of sports and promoting a healthy lifestyle among the youth. Do not miss out on Goats Like Us. Your front row seat awaits you every Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DCT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag GOATS, greatest of all time. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Tell you what, Aslam Kota with me as a cricket commentator. Aslam, first of all, good chatting to you. Hi.
Thank you very much. Good chatting with you as well, Ashraf.
Hey, I'm going to say this in the light of where we are. I'm thrilled that I'm talking to you for the first time ever, talking about our national team in a Cricket World Cup final. It's unprecedented.
Exactly. It's historic in every way you look at it from a sporting point of view, especially cricket. So you're absolutely right, Ashraf. I mean, it is a first, and hopefully there'll be more to talk about late tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening.
And maybe that's the big question. How do we convert being in the final to winning the final?
Very interesting question. I think what we've heard for many years, and both of us are great and avid followers of sport, be it rugby, soccer or cricket, we know that what most coaches say at the time is that you've been well prepared, you've been beautifully grilled, you've done the job, go out there, enjoy yourselves, and put your best foot forward. So this is basically what both teams are going to do. I think it's going to come down to experience, where India have certainly been at it a lot more. Indian players have experienced finals a lot more than the South Africans have, although they have fallen short on a number of occasions in the last 10 years. The Indians, for the South Africans, it will be a first. And it's going to be pressure on both sides. So that's obviously because of natural pressure being there for the first time. For the Indians, because of the fact that there's so much a demand on the team to do well, and especially win an ICC trophy, given the money and the hype that cricket has in that country, they are under some pressure. They haven't won a trophy in, I think it's 12 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, there's a country with huge expectations, but that means even bigger pressure. Where do you think, and just to tell you, Aslam, by the way, we've got Nokukanya Ngola with me as part of a co-hosting as part of the SFM Youth Takeover. So at a stage, maybe in a moment or two, she's going to ask a question too, right? You want to do it now? No? She'll do it in a minute or so. Aslam, where do you think, and I'm looking at the two semi-finals where the game was won for South Africa when Afghanistan, and I certainly watched it 2:30 in the morning, they were skittled out very, very quickly, so you knew there was a problem. And then yesterday, even though India scored only 170, and I say only, there was lots of talk to say England will cruise, and I told myself England will not get the score because the pressure of a semi-final to chase 170 is far bigger than chasing 200 in a normal, meaningless game. So my point is, where do you think this game will be won or lost?
Well, I mean, just to analyze the two matches there, first of all, all out on a very dicey pitch. So that was not good for cricket itself, and I'm sure you've seen around the world there's been a lot of criticism as far as that semi-final pitch is concerned, the one with South Africa involved. And then the second one, I mean, on any other pitch that we've seen in other parts of the world, 170, you wouldn't be satisfied with it. But during this competition, if you scored 170, you've gotten way above par that was necessary to defend. And then we saw that India did defend it, and I think you made the point there. The fact that the scoreboard pressure is going to tell, and we saw that's exactly what happened to England at run chase. And I'm just concerned that tomorrow's pitch, although I expect it to go a lot more conducive to good cricket, not dicey cricket or variable rounds and things like that, has become a concern over the last month. And I know that the curators at the Kensington Oval weren't too pleased because they say that during the CPL, Caribbean Premier League, that particular ground has yielded a lot more runs than it has during this World Cup.
Absolutely. Right, let me just bring in Nokukana. You may want to ask a question. Go ahead.
Yes, I do. What are your thoughts on Aiden's as a captain?
I think he's an absolute star. He won the World Cup as an under-19 player for South Africa in the UAE 10 years ago. He was a strapping 19-year-old. Later, at 29, the South Africans brilliantly during this tournament, gone completely scathed or unbeaten. And remember last year when he had captain in the case of injured Temba Baluma, they won those matches as well. He has a 100% record, and I do think that with his form and the way with his form as a captain, and also the assistance that he's getting from outside off the field has been pretty fantastic. I mean, that's why they've been able to put things together, and also they finally found the balance in the team that can click. And that somebody or the other will turn up and pitch up on the day and put in the performance.
Aslam, very quickly as we want to news time, I mean, I look back at the Springbok Rugby World Cup winning victory of last year, right? And what they had to get right was points on board, not in terms of tries, but penalty points. And therefore, the kicking was absolutely key. We know that, right? So for you, right, what are the 2 or 3 things, and you've got 30 seconds to answer this, that South Africa's got to get right on the day?
Well, to me, the both teams are beautifully balanced. I mean, player to player from 1 to 11, equal on both sides. The difference is Indian bowlers have been a much better strike force, even though we may say the South Africans have, and that's where the game is going to be won and lost. The Indian bowlers versus the South African batsmen.
Indian bowlers, South African batsmen. Should we bat first if we're given a chance?
Cup final, I reckon you should bet first.
Always. The pressure of even scoring 120 to face is too big a pressure indeed. Absolutely. Aslam Kota, great chatting to you, and I know where you'll be at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. Somewhere, well, wherever you are, watching cricket, as so will I be doing the same thing. Thanks for that, Aslam Kota. Big game on Saturday. Right now, it's 4 o'clock. Let's get the news with Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. The top story is the SAWA Mpox screening at points of entry across SA, and the EFF's Marshal Dlamini sentenced for assault. A very good afternoon. Screening for the Mpox is underway at points of entry across the country, including at the Lebombo port of entry with Mozambique. The Border Management Authority is screening all people in an effort to curb the spread of the infectious disease. At least 16 positive cases have been confirmed in KZN, Gauteng, and the Western Cape. 3 deaths have been reported nationwide. The BMA's Murdoch Ramatuba says they are collaborating with emergency services to manage the screening program.
If travelers are found to be suspected of these diseases, they will be advised on the nearest health facilities that they can go to, or we can then facilitate with the emergency services to get them evacuated to those health facilities for assistance.
Here are the views of some people entering South Africa through the Lebombo border post.
The test they conducted by the borders, I think it's a very good thing. That is to do precautions with people, test the people, to make sure it doesn't transfer monkeypox to other people. It's a very good thing to do.
South Africa,
EFF SG Marshal Dlamini has been handed a suspended sentence for the assault of a police official after the State of the Nation address in 2019. Dlamini has been slapped with an 18-month sentence, suspended for 5 years. He was also fined 6,000 rand. The EFF says it has noted the Cape Town Regional Court's decision. Spokesperson Leanne Mateise insists that Dlamini was acting in defense of the EFF leadership after police confirmed that there was a threat on party leader Julius Malema on the day in question.
The rationale used by the court in the sentencing reaffirms our view that the case in its entirety was vindictive, and it was part of a broader attempt to provoke and then criminalize the leadership of the EFF. It is our firm view that there was a premeditated agenda to prevent the EFF leadership from executing its legislative responsibilities at the SONA on that day.
Limpopo government spokesperson Ndaba Ramaguela has been found guilty of tax evasion in the Polokwane Specialized Commercial Crimes Court. Ramaguela has been handed a sentence of 12 months imprisonment or a 5,000 rand fine. He was found guilty of evading tax between 2007 and 2017. NPA spokesperson Mashudu Malabitsangi.
The Polokwane Specialized Commercial Crimes Court has convicted and sentenced the Chief Director of Communications in Limpopo's Premier's Office, Ndabelesene Ramakwela, to pay a fine of 5,000 or to serve 12 months imprisonment. The accused was facing charges of failing to submit his personal income tax returns as required by the South African Revenue Services.
Some business owners in the Maluti-Apofung municipality in the Free State have expressed dissatisfaction over the inconsistent supply of water and electricity. The chairperson of the Business and Police Forum, Surendran Jeth, says some businesses have seen a decline, with others planning on closing. Residents in Kwakwa, alongside the business community, are up in arms, demanding that the municipality improve its provision of services. Ranjith says it's been a long-running problem.
For so many years, the residents, including the businesses, the community at large, have really suffered with what is going on here, which is the load shedding, Kwakwa load shedding that you have continuously, the water issues. We just came out of a water crisis. Water was restored to the residents after 10 days. Yeah, and that too, no explanation. So when they have spoken about this march, we thought we will join them because they are saying the same things we are saying.
And the President of Argentina, Javier Milei, has welcomed Parliament's approval of his package of major economic reforms, which have prompted mass protests since he took office last year. His government has applied a drastic all-out fiscal austerity program with the aim of achieving zero budget deficit by the end of this year to tame chronic inflation. The provisions of the package also envision tax, customs and foreign exchange incentives to encourage investment, which is racked by economic crisis. The Libertarian leaders' efforts to control soaring inflation were passed in the late-night session after months of debate. The top story at 4 o'clock, a screening for the Mpox is underway at ports of entry across the country, including at the Lebombo port of entry with Mozambique. For SAFM News,
and coming up in your sports this hour, Junior Box look to Kuan to run the show, and Pirates confirm signing of Angolan winger. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Houghton Drive northbound in Parktown has delays towards Newton Street. In Pretoria, SKM Pahleli Drive northbound has delays towards Moot Street. Dalmas Road northbound is slow moving towards Pirang Road. The N14 northbound has delays towards the R101 interchange, and the N1 northbound has a crash reported before the N4 Bakwena highway. That's causing delays. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a crash after Umgeni Road. In Ashburton, the N3 eastbound has a stationary truck reported after Linfield Park, and the N3 westbound has a crash reported at Ashburton. All lanes are open, and slow moving traffic reported throughout that central Durban CBD area. In Cape Town, the N2 in Somerset West is queuing at Victoria Street. Main Road is slow moving throughout that central Wynberg area. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krumbum Road exit, and the M3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
It's the second hour of the National Pulse, and today is very different because today is the SAFM Youth Takeover, and you may have heard we've had young South Africans not just being present but also co-hosting the SAFM Sunrise Show hosted by Stephen Quartus. And the same with me today. I've got two special guests. I've got Shanti Koza as well as Nokukanya Ngola, who is the sports anchor for the day. But Shanti, I mean, you're on air with me for an hour now.
Yes.
There's lots of breaks in between. What's it like so far?
It's a very good experience. It's exciting. I think especially seeing the behind the scenes, seeing how, everything that we listen to on radio comes to life, especially on such a big platform. It's really a privilege. I'm excited.
And I did say earlier on that it's like running a mental marathon every day. I mean, you've got a snippet of the behind the scenes. I mean, not everything goes according to plan. I mean, as you can gather, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, just the thinking of, okay, how do we do this next and how are we going to deliver this? But it is also a very good experience.
Okay, well, later on, you'll be chatting about gender-based violence yourself, and I'll sort of assist you as opposed to you assisting me in co-presenting that. That will come up later on. Let's get to another issue. By the way, in terms of the cricket and the conversation I had with Aslam Kota, do you agree with some of the sentiments that he shared regarding the South African team and what we need to get right to be able to win that World Cup against India tomorrow? And if you have a thought on that, then I want to know. You can call in to 086 000 2032. You can also WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. And you can post comments on our social media pages on the X or Twitter platform. Tweet it out, and the same on Facebook as well. Many people, of course, sending out WhatsApp voice notes, and I will go through many of those as soon as I can. Absolutely. For now, let's get to another important issue. And how is this for a cause for concern? There's an issue of possible jail time for the former Minister Toko Didiza. Now, yesterday, the Western Cape High Court found in favor of 3 farmers from Beaufort West holding the former Minister of Agriculture, Rural Development and Land Reform Toko Didiza and some of her departmental officials in contempt of court, and that's the key one, in contempt of court, for failing to place them in possession of 2 farms in which they have been farming since 2017. The court ordered the former minister and her departmental officials to restore possession of the farms to the applicants within 30 days, failing which they will be committed to prison for a period of 30 days. The 3 farmers are represented by the Legal Resources Centre. So with me, Cecile van Skalkbeek, who's a senior attorney at the Legal Resources Centre. Cecile, you're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. This is an interesting development. Perhaps you want to just share for you what is the single biggest issue to come out of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as you've pointed out, it was a contempt of court application. We got an order in March of 2024 that the department needed to restore possession to our clients who themselves are land reform beneficiaries under the redistribution program. And then in January and February of this year, the department simply put more, people onto 2 of the farms, effectively dispossessing our clients of the farms they've been farming on since 2017. So in March, we got an order saying, you've got to restore possession immediately. And the department unfortunately took the position, the minister and her officials, that the order didn't require of them to do anything. And of course, the order did require of them to do something, to actually take steps to remove the people and to restore our clients' possession. And I think yesterday, the Western Cape High Court said, you can't simply ignore orders of our court. You have to comply with our orders. You have to take steps to restore possession. And, therefore the department, if they don't, the minister and the former minister, if they don't comply with the order and if they don't place our clients back in possession within 30 days, jail time, which I think is important for accountability in our country.
And I mean, one is it's a former minister, but now also Speaker of Parliament.
Yeah, she's now the Speaker of the Parliament. The order names her names her personally. So I suppose that will be a bit of an administrative difficulty for the department to sort out, but ultimately she needs to remedy the breach of the order within the next 30 days. Otherwise, she and her officials will be committed to jail.
Okay, there's as part of today's show, we have what is called the SFM Youth Takeover. So we've got young people who are not just in studio with me, but they're also co-hosting with me. One of them is Shanti Koza. Shanti, if you're ready to ask a question, you can go ahead. Yeah?
I'm just wondering, Ashraf, thank you so much, and hello, Cecile. I just want to find out, what was the current state of the farms?
Yeah, so the farms are state-owned farms. Thank you so much for that question. I mean, the farms are state-owned farms, and they form part of the state land redistribution program. So it's about trying to give access to land for people who were previously deprived of access to land because of racially discriminatory laws under the apartheid regime. And our clients are beneficiaries of that program, as they are very, very successful sheep farmers. They've got about 2,000 sheep on the farm. They are also it's wool sheep, and they've been very successful in their wool sheep operations. They've won multiple prizes for their wool. So the farm is a functioning farm. And of course, you can imagine that once some of that land was deprived from our clients, it has an impact on their entire business operation, on their ability to successfully continue with their bull farming operations, which has financial implications for themselves as well as their workers and the surround, and the animals.
Okay, so in terms of the 30-day notice they've got, I mean, did anything come through? I mean, are there comments, responses from the other party, in this case here, the former minister?
I mean, we only got the judgment yesterday, so we haven't had any formal communication. I would imagine the process going forward would be that their legal representatives would discuss it with the department. They, of course, still have the option of appealing the judgment if they so wished. But I would imagine that there would be some serious talks happening at the moment within the department and with the legal representatives about how they take the matter forward.
Okay, and then in terms of the farmers that you represent, what has been their response based upon the judgment?
Yeah, I mean, they were delighted, as you can imagine. I think this has really put a stress on them, not only from a practical perspective, because they've got 2,000 sheep they need to care for, and being deprived of some of their land has a direct impact on their animals. But also, their business operations need to continue, and this has had a financial impact on them, and will continue to have a financial impact on them if the department doesn't abide by its orders. So they're absolutely delighted and just very overjoyed about the court making such a definitive statement about what the law is and what departmental officials have to do.
Okay, well, let's leave it at that and let's see how the law finally takes its course and what happens next. And clearly what is so many different ramifications, I would think, besides the obvious linear thing that was done in the introduction. Cecile van Schalkwyk, appreciate your time, Senior Attorney at the Legal Resources Centre. Thank you for that. Right, let's get to some WhatsApp voice notes as well, because we had lots of people commenting about that. So, and I welcome your comments. Again, it's sort of unrelated, related regarding Toko Didiza, but what would that mean? It's not going to happen in a day, because they've got 30 days to present their case, but what happens if that follows through, and where does that put her as the Speaker of Parliament? Lots of things happening. There's also been the issue of the EFF Secretary General, once Secretary General, with an issue of being convicted, and what that means for him as well as for the party. But your comments are welcome.
Amidst misinformation and disinformation, where can we find reliable news? Turn to radio, your trusted source for truthful updates. For over 3 decades, we've upheld integrity as a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct. Count on us for news you can trust. Say no to fake news. Radio, keeping it real since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters. Tune in, trust, and stay informed.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get to some of the WhatsApp voice notes we've had. We asked questions, the US debate, the South Africa debate. Here's your thoughts.
Good day, Ashraf, and good day to your co-host, who I would advocate to come on a weekly basis. She's killing it. I think when it comes to debates, the ANC would have to select Mamnale Dipando, and the EFF, Julius Malema, and MK would have to select, I think, Mngetama, as Andile Mngetama. And the other parties, I don't know, but I think those three, for me, they stand out, as debaters. Thank you for the great show.
The question is not who they would select. I mean, you mentioned people like Andile Mngetama, for example, right? No, we're talking about presidential leaders. That means leaders of the party leaders, not second, not third, not fourth, not fifth in command, not best speaker. We're talking about the actual leaders. Would we be able to carry off a debate like that? Does it actually have the impact that we seek of clarity, or is it simply there to knock each other off? Notwithstanding the points I made earlier, and I think so did Shanti, that I think a leader can be reflective, but they must be able to communicate if they have to speak to the masses, which is really what being a national leader is all about. There's further comments about that debate.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. To be a good debate, it doesn't mean that you are a good leader. I agree with that guy who was speaking, that Donald Trump or Joe Biden when they were debating. But it seems as if Donald Trump will be back as the president of USA. Republican, they push it. And the age is whipping Joe Biden. I believe that Donald Trump is going to be back as the president of America. Thank you.
Well, I hear your point. You have to be wondering, even if he's fumbling or not, is Joe Biden a good enough investment to lead the country at the age of 8? Is it 82, 83? Really? I mean, just think about that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and your co-host there. There are people who can present themselves very well. I was talking to someone about the issue of interviews before you get a job.
Mm-hmm.
There's someone who's going to fail the interview because they fail to present themselves, to sell themselves, but then they can do the job. Then there's this someone who can speak fluently and sell themselves and say the right things, you see, and get the job, but then you find that they actually can't do the job. I don't know if I make sense. So sometimes I feel like the interview alone is not enough, because some people can't sell themselves, can't speak and sell them and present themselves.
Well, I'll tell you what,
thank you.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that one. Well, Shanti, let me pick your brain on that. I mean, you hear that, right? Some people can do they can speak very well, but they can't do the job. Some people can't speak very well, but they can do the job.
I think there should be a balance. There should be a balance. How do we know you can do the job if you can't tell us what you can do?
In fact, my question to them is, when you elect a president, what is the job of the president? What are they supposed to do? That means a lot of it is internal and negotiating behind the scenes. But if a president is not external and unable to communicate to a nation in one go, then they're not doing their job.
Definitely, Ashraf. I mean, it's public office after all, so
not
you have
private office. Well,
it's not.
I mean, that's exactly the point, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, we're going to chat to Oresti Patricios coming up, I think, in a moment. By the way, are you aware that we have this annual social media landscape report? So that report was delivered today, comes out every single year, and we're going to talk to Oresti about that right after this.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends, you need a weekend playlist.
When I started out, it was just a matter of seeing you every day. And one day I'll reach it.
It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, in fact, there's some voice notes as well around other issues around Swane. Let's pick that up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. This is Mbongo Sundisa Palendulo. Mr. Ashraf, when the employees of City of Tshwane went to strike, then they were dismissed because the city said they don't have money, they can't afford any increase. Yet they just created a position for someone who's going to earn 3 million with 21,000 allowance for a cell phone to assist the city manager. How is that possible? Whereas they said they don't have money. People would think like maybe just GA runs things smoothly, but now I'm shocked.
Okay, you're shocked, and many people are. But here's another one, and this one has come through in the light of the debate about the post maybe given to the DA and then taken away around trade, Ministry of Trade, longer than that. But here's one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and your co-host. Man, look, you see these, I think our black leaders, especially the Deran ANC, they failed us, you see. They busy claiming that they trying to advance the life of a black child through this BEE whatsoever, the minimum wage. It's not working. It's not working, yeah.
Okay, got that. Any thoughts on BEE, Shanti? It's a hot potato.
It's a very hot one. I think It was necessary, to balance, to level the playing field, given where we're coming from, especially seeing that we are celebrating or we have our 30th democracy. But the question is, to what extent does that go?
Maybe the bigger question is, to what extent has it actually changed business leadership in the country? And if it hasn't, then where's the flaws? And I think there are many flaws that we can probably talk about. Let's get to Rian in Pietermaritzburg. Hi, Rian.
What's up?
Yeah, good talking to you, Rian. Go ahead.
Yesterday you spoke about non-racialism within the ANC.
Yeah.
I have a problem with that statement. If you were to take me, maybe being a 50-year-old, I qualify for the old dispensation and I must be punished for the sins of my father. And that's why maybe I can't get anywhere in my career in the state simply because of my skin color. But why should my children be punished? If they want to get into a provincial team, there's a quota. It doesn't matter how good you are. It matters what color you are. And that all comes down from the government. In other words, the ANC then. And, that's racist as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Rian. Let me come in. I hear what you're saying, and I think it is such a complex issue. I mean, you're right on the one hand. You can't perpetually, punish generation after generation for what you think, generation one has done. On the other hand, I think what is evident is inherent advantages by the future generations or the next generations based upon the privileges of the earlier generations. Let me give you an example, right? If I asked someone in a relatively middle class community, they needed some advice. Let's say they're doing articles and they want some advice in terms of the law. They could find a relative between 20 people. Somebody would be a lawyer, or if not them, the relative's relative, or if not them, somebody's friend. They are able to get advice from a legal person. Contrast that with, say, someone in Langa in the Western Cape, because I know this happened. If you ask then someone to say they need advice from a lawyer, they have no lawyer in their amongst their relatives, no lawyer in their street, no lawyer in their community, nobody else within like 5 square kilometers they can ask for advice. It is that type of disadvantage, and you and I know that if you, for example, if your son was wanting to play cricket, there's a good chance you could get him to the Wanderers or to Newlands and hopefully even get him to meet the best batsman in the country at that time. That's the type of relative advantage, disadvantage I'm talking about, Rayan.
Ashraf, I hear you, and I can't disagree with you. But the girls, for instance, my girls play hockey, okay? And the girls that they are having to compete against, they go to, or they're out of school now, but they used to go to a small little country school where they didn't have the facilities that the big schools had. Yet the black kids or the players of color, all of them that are chosen to be in these teams come from the best hockey schools. So they've got a better advantage than what my daughters had, yet my daughter's skin color counts against her.
Well, I'll tell you what. I hear you. I don't know. Do you want to? We've got Shanti with us. Do you want to comment now? So Shanti Koza, who I've just referred to now, is co-hosting with me today as part of the SFM Youth Takeover. I mean, I hear you. Let me say this again, Rian. I think it is incredibly complex. I think apartheid and what it stood for is wrong. There had to be a redress. And it can't just be you can vote so everything is fine. The redress had to be you had to give others who were denied the opportunity a lift up. At some stage, that may well end, but in terms of that...
Absolutely, but you can't have 3 generations down the line still redressing. And you are not redressing because you are benefiting those that are in a position of privilege now.
Well, okay.
Simply because of their skin color.
Well, you see, this is the point again. I mean, we could have a 1-hour chat about this relative privilege, and for every example you've given, there's still it's completely glaringly obvious that 80% of the country effectively has changed very, very little, and we can maybe blame other leaders for that, but that's the reality. But having said that, Shanti, you want to come in there?
I guess my comment, Ashraf, is just to ask, I hear he's mentioning the 3 generations, and my question is, how long did apartheid actually take for us to say the 30 years of democracy is enough to balance the playing field that I mentioned earlier?
Yeah. Well, okay.
But the thing is, Ashraf, why are you teaching? I refuse to take my children to private schools because I said they belong to South Africa and they will be in the state school in the town that we live. Okay. And the majority of the kids in my daughter's class were non-white, to be racist, if you want to call it.
Well, it's not being racist. I mean, there's a reality.
Yeah. But when it comes to hockey, suddenly now it counts what color you are.
Okay,
No,
I'm going to
right.
move on only because we're out of time. Rian, I tell you what, there's a need for a greater conversation around redress, around looking at those who had privilege, and then how long does the privilege continue, and then to what degree do we, let's call it, punish in inverted commas the following generations of those who have privilege? I don't have the answers. It'll take a long, long time. I can tell you that now. Thanks for that, Rian. Let's get another quick thought on non-racialism. Babitseng in the Northern Cape. Hi, you're on to news time, so maybe 30 seconds, please. Yeah.
Yes. Look, Ashraf, this thing of non-racialism, we tend to talk more about it. There are other things like tribalism that we tend to overlook, and just because that I look like you, and then people will just make a sweeping statement that black people are. There are things that we need to put in place in order to be a conclusive government whereby those other tribes are being their interests are being taken care of.
Okay, I got that. We don't have much time to comment, only because we're on to news time. But just how big an issue or a problem, could I say problem, is tribalism. Thanks for that call, Babitseng. Let's get to the news headlines now with Madupi.
Thanks, Ashraf. Good afternoon. In your headlines, screening for the Mpox is underway at points of entry across the country, including at the Lebombo point of entry with Mozambique. It's emerged that 3 people have died and 20 others were injured in a collision between a bus and a bakkie at Beinesport near Cullinan in Pretoria. And Volkswagen Group Africa, based in Karriega in the Eastern Cape, has received an award at the Volkswagen Awards in Germany for plastic recycling in the Zero Impact Factory Environmental category. A full news update coming up 5 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, in Boysens, the M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown Interchange towards Boysens, and the M1 northbound is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. In Pretoria, the N1 northbound has a crash reported just before the N4 Bakwena Highway, and Solomon Mhlangu Drive has delays at the N4 Highway. In KZN, the N3 in Pinetown is queuing at Murray and Hill Toll Plaza. The N2 southbound has a crash after Umgeni Road, and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound has a crash reported before the N2 highway exit. The M7 Jakes Havel Drive in Mitchells Plain is closed between Morganstair Road and Cedar Avenue, so you are to expect delays and diversions. Albert Road has a crash at Salt River Circle, and the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumin Khapeli.
As always, we have the Minister of Sport delivering sport. That's to me as always, but we're also joined now by the Deputy Minister of Sport. You see, there really is cabinet changes that have taken place already. I'm talking about Nokukanya and Ngoda, right? So yes. I'll leave it to both of you guys. Go ahead. Yeah.
Righty, this hour we start things off with rugby, and Bafana Ntleko says that debutant fly half Liam Quinn will be entrusted to kickstart the Junior Springboks attack in the Under-20 World Championship opener against Fiji tomorrow. Quinn has been named as one of the 3 uncapped players in the Junior Springboks lineup for their tournament opener at Cape Town Stadium on Saturday. Then in football, Orlando Pirates have confirmed the signing of Angolan Delvi Miguel Vieira, better known as Gilberto, as coach Jose Riveiro seeks to refresh his squad ahead of the 2024-25 DStv Premiership season and another shot at the CAF Champions League. Now, the right winger arrives from Petro Atletico, where he was a star name, and will reportedly cost the Buccaneers in the region of 12 million rand. Gilberto penned a 3-year deal with the Sea Robbers and will join the club on their pre-season tour in Spain from the 8th of July.
In the meantime, Cape Town City has unveiled Fortune Makaringe as the latest addition to their squad for a new DStv Premiership campaign. He joins on a free transfer after having to come to an end of his contract at Orlando Pirates last month. And this one of at least 7 new players have been promised by Chairman John Comitas.
And this will be the 10th successive season in top flight football for midfielder Makaringe, who turned 31 in May. In motorsport, Red Bull's Max Verstappen was the fastest in practice at the Austrian Grand Prix ahead of McLaren's Oscar Piastri. Mercedes drivers Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, who were the quickest in the early part of the session, did not do a run on the soft tires like others later on.
And that's it from us for now. More other sports at 5:30.
That was a short sport, am I imagining? Why?
Because we're trying to, get her to be more confident.
Oh, I see. Okay, fine. Right. Anything else you want to pick up on? I mean, any of the other... Right, Benny McCarthy comes to mind. He's not going to be the strikers coach at Man United any longer. So that's fine. I mean, okay, that happens. But the rumor is that he may take over at Kaizer Chiefs, or because he wants to coach a club. You know anything about it?
Absolutely not. Oh, the last time I checked, he's staying at Man United.
No, this was announced yesterday.
Is it?
That he will... It'll terminate in the month.
But he's definitely not coming to Chiefs. That's one thing.
Why not?
Because we're waiting on a specific coach.
And you know the name?
Yes.
So why would you keep it to yourself?
Listen, it will be announced when the time is right.
I thought reporters break the news. But anyway, all right, we will see where Benny McCarthy finally ends up. I mean, here's the thought that Benny McCarthy would want to get into management once again. He's done that before. I think was it Cape Town City, if I'm not mistaken, and then a couple other clubs. And where does he finally land up? Something for you to consider. Let's get to the markets right after this.
Come closer. Over here. Man, oh man, do I have something to tell you? Huh? You know what would happen if you weren't here? No SABC Sport, no The Masked Singer, no Espresso, no Afternoon Express, no Ready Steady Cook, no news and current affairs, no radio, no nothing. Just Dololo, silence. But you, my friend, you make it happen. Because you pay your home and business TV license, now we can deal or no deal. Skim Sam, Mubango, Hectic 99 and Fuetspura. Gose Guse, Jovito. So please keep on keeping on and doing the right thing so we can make new memories and tell stories for the now generation. SABC TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
22-time champions Toulouse want to rubber stamp their dominance with the 23rd title. But Bodo Begley have a massive point to prove that they didn't reach their first final by mistake. This is the top 14 final. Stade Toulousain collides with Union Bodo Begley this Friday 28 June at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Tell you what, this is like critical considering we're into Youth Month and we're into the last few days of Youth Month. Are you a youth entrepreneur looking to get funding? I would expect as you're listening and you'll be saying, yes, it's me, right? So SAFER provides opportunities for entrepreneurs through the Youth Challenge Fund. And your success starts here. Get to the website firstly, SAFER, which is SEFA, sefa.org.za. Then search for YCF. Goodness, if I was younger, I'd be doing it like ASAP, I can tell you now. SAFER is a registered credit provider. Terms and conditions apply.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets now with Paswani Impatlele, who's a senior portfolio manager at Markway Fund Managers. Paswani, good chatting to you as always. Let's get to local and global markets.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and to all your listeners. We're going into a week, we're ending the week where we're seeing green light on the market, despite the following mixed performance during the week. As we close in on the month of June, markets are trading higher, and this follows on highly anticipated US PCE inflation number that came in unchanged overall, supported by food prices being lower, although services prices did show some slight increases. And when you consider the fact that the personal spending also decreased, this has encouraged investors on the potential rate cut coming in the next quarter, as yields will remain slightly lower, dollar will held to a steady, and commodity prices got generally a higher boost. Meanwhile, oil prices was the outlier in terms of commodities, showing some weakness, but it's still recording a 6% gain for the month of June. Local investors remained optimistically cautious on the cabinet announcement that should is expected to come out during the weekend. And meanwhile, on the economic front, we saw some private activity, private credit numbers that showed that South Africans are still relying on credit. They were raised up to 4.2%, following a 3.9% increase in the previous month, as economic conditions still pressurize consumers to limit use of credit to survive. With that said, general market sentiment remains rather positive. U.S. markets opened up. Dow was up 0.5, S&P 0.6, Nasdaq up 0.8. In Europe, it was rather flat in terms of FTSE. DAX was up 0.3. Meanwhile, the CAC was down 0.6, Ashraf, ahead of political outcome in the coming weekend. JSE was up 0.7, supported by financials up 2.6, industrials up 0.1. Meanwhile, resources were down 0.8. Looking into the commodity market, gold issues are slightly up by 0.1 at $2,330 an ounce. Number up 2.6 at $1,004 an ounce. Oil was down 1.8% at $84.72 a barrel. Looking at the rand, it was roughly stronger against major currencies. Rand against the dollar at 18.20, rand against the euro 19.46, and rand against the pound 3.298.
Okay. Well, that's it. Thanks for your time. As always, we're going to chat next week then, of course. Right, Paswani, thanks for your time. Paswani Impatlele, Senior Portfolio Manager at Markway Fund Managers. Another report, by the way, coming up. Sort of Jimmy's in the hot seat, coming up just under an hour. You know that, with the MoneyWeb markets update. Right, we're going to talk about the social media landscape report right after this.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, so every year, I understand there's been the social media landscape report, and I've sort of attended most of them. Some of them I missed. In fact, I couldn't quite connect properly today, but doesn't mean the report wasn't delivered, because I wasn't there. Oresti Patricios is with me. He's the CEO of the Onico Group, which is a Pan-African brand intelligence research firm, and I think one of the founders of this annual social media landscape report that I think you put together with Arthur Goldstack, right? Oresti, good chatting to you. Hi to Greece as well.
Hello, Arthur. Yes, I'm here in Greece.
Well, you see, you're calling me Arthur. You're calling me Arthur. You really are on holiday. Understandably.
I am. You're right.
Yeah. Now, just to tell you, by the way, we are in the midst of what we're hosting, which is called the SAFM Youth Takeover Day. So we've got a young person with me in studio who's co-hosting. So you're going to hear her voice just now, Shanti Koza, just so that you know that, right? So give us an overview. You have this annual report of the key findings of various social media properties, right? Whatever, Facebook, Twitter, or I still call it Twitter, TikTok, etc., etc. So what's come through? Give me some bullet points.
So, Ashraf, we do this, and it's really because firstly, these platforms don't really give much information to the brands. So we do that to try and help brands and agencies kind of understand the demographics on those platforms. But also, very importantly, is where do marketers intend to be active, and which platforms do they tend to be active, to just kind of give everybody a guideline in terms of where they are and where they're going to be in the future. So it's a forward-looking survey.
So a simple thing like even the show. I mean, just to tell you, the show is broadcast on radio as you would know it, but it's also live streaming on YouTube. It's also live streaming on the SABC Plus app, and then on the X or Twitter platform and on Facebook. So I mean, those sort of questions, isn't it? We would need to know that in terms of where we go next, right? Okay, what's come through?
Okay, so what's come through? It's really quite consistent most years, but this year there's some interesting findings. The top 5 platforms is really Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, X, and YouTube, and that's generally what it's been for a while. Except, though, what brands are intending to be on in the next year has dropped from in 2018. 97% of brands said they're going to be spending time on Facebook, whereas this year it has dropped down to 78%, which is huge. Instagram has also dropped a little bit from 72 in 2018 to 56. LinkedIn has been very, very consistent at, again, 72 down to 72. X has dropped dramatically as well, from 90% in 2018 to just 51% this year. The surprise, well, not really the surprising one, but the one that has grown quite dramatically, or the brands intend investing in the next year, is TikTok. So in 2020, very few people and brands were really interested in TikTok. It was 1% were thinking about investing and spending time on TikTok, whereas this year it's 33% are looking at it. So it's quite a big growth within TikTok. And some of the other platforms are looking, the brands are looking to not spend as much time on that.
And I mean, the key finding of this is how much time each one of us, is it individuals or is it brands that are spending all this time? It will be individuals, right? Users.
So there's two different parts of the survey. This one that I'm talking to you about is where do the companies, where do they intend to be active on?
Okay.
Then, together with Ask African TGI, we looked at where are the consumers and how much and where are they spending their time at the end of the day. And it's also been an interesting results in that Facebook has only dropped a little bit, and when you're looking at the international numbers, Facebook has dropped quite a lot. But in South Africa, the usage of Facebook has only dropped from 59% down to 56%. Instagram from 26%, it's gone up a little bit. X has dropped dramatically from 22% to 18%, but TikTok again has gone up from 30 to 34% from a user's perspective.
Okay, fascinating. Shanti, do you want to ask anything now?
Not at the moment.
Okay, maybe if you get a chance, you may do so. So, how should we interpret? I mean, how should a marketer interpret this?
So the way they should interpret it is really trying to understand the different platforms. Now, remember that each of the different platforms have different algorithms. They have different target markets to a degree. When you're looking at the TGI data, again, you're kind of seeing where most of the demographics are spending their time. So it's really trying to match where your target market is in terms of that particular brand, but also the platform, but also very much so is what that platform can deliver, and how you're measuring that platform. But also brands need to understand what are they trying to achieve at the end of the day, and where do they want to be and how do they want to engage. Because if you think about it, if you think about Facebook, that platform has got a little bit more longevity than Twitter. You can be on Twitter within a couple of hours. Whatever we're talking about dies very quickly, and it's kind of pretty toxic. And that's why a lot of brands are thinking, let's get off Twitter. Whereas Facebook has got much higher longevity, and you can play with it and engage with it a lot more than you can with X. And again, with LinkedIn, it's much more of a B2B platform. So you've got to understand each of the platforms and understand what are you trying to achieve, what are the messages, who are your consumers to really engage with that.
So I think that's an important point, because it doesn't necessarily mean Facebook's got high usage, that Facebook is more impactful, for example, than Twitter or X. It depends on the outcomes, because the audiences differ. So for example, we know, and this is very much a current affairs show, when it comes to breaking news stories and analysis, and where does President Ramaphosa tweet out his information, and where does the DA do the same, and the EFF? It's all on the Twitter or the X platform, isn't it? So they different markets. But here's the thing: is there a social media platform that is able to do both, which is become very newsy on the one hand, and therefore very engaged, but on the other hand, somehow seems very appealing to a mass market and therefore very appealing to consumer brands?
I still think Facebook is probably the one to be. I mean, TikTok is not as engaging at the end of the day as Facebook and X or Twitter is. But it's very easy to work with. It's got huge growth. But also, again, with Twitter, it's become really, really toxic. I mean, the conversations and the webinars and the comments that people were making on the webinar this morning was how toxic Twitter can be, and for brands it becomes a little bit problematic. Specifically, the way Elon Musk has allowed X or Twitter to really become as toxic as it is.
Okay. Anything else that's come out in terms of the landscape report that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some really nice, interesting things in that. How brands are now really, after a bit of a dip, are really investing in technology. I think the large language models, which ones are they using? And ChatGPT is definitely number one, Gemini number two, Copilot number three. And for me, one of the most interesting outtakes of this was that over the years, we asked the question is, in the next 12 months, will you be deleting any of your social media accounts? And we get 6%, 8%, and very few brands are looking to delete their accounts. What was really interesting was this year, that 20% of brands are looking to delete their social media accounts. And I thought that was interesting. And on first glance, I thought, well, most of them are going to actually delete Twitter. And it's not entirely true. Out of those 20%, 19% was Facebook, 30% was Twitter, and 33% Instagram. And I thought that was a really interesting take. Yeah.
Okay, because that's not really telling in terms of why there's a reason. So it's not like a run on one particular platform. There's a general. Did they give a reason why? Just the last thing.
No, they didn't give a reason why, but it actually gives us a really nice angle to kind of interrogate this going forward. Okay. Because it was unusual and quite. I mean, for me, I looked at this and I thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's so high, because it's been like that for years.
Now, I'm going to ask you, I know it's free to attend the event. I'm going to ask you if you are able to, if it's possible, tweet out or Facebook out or whatever the relevant, or LinkedIn out the information and maybe the links to that. But lastly, if anybody wants the actual report, can they still access it?
Yeah, they can access it. They can also listen to the webinar on the Ornico platform on YouTube. They can go on to ornico.co and go into the reports and download the full report. I mean, it's a 94-page report. It's really insightful from across different companies in South Africa.
Okay, and therefore we talk to you. Much appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of what I think will be a memorable trip for you in Greece. Much appreciate your time, Oreste.
Thank you, Ashraf. Thank you very much.
Oreste Patricios. There we are, from Ornico, but of course putting together what is a fascinating social media landscape report. More thoughts on the issue of gender-based violence, by the way, is what we're going to pick up on right after this.
The reality is that 90% of South Africans don't save enough for retirement. This National Savings Month, why not be part of the 10% who do? Choose an interest rate of up to 12.6% after 60 months with a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account. Anyone over 55 can open theirs via the Nedbank Money app in less than 2 minutes. Join the bank that's best for your savings goals. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Hey there! Need to know your TV license balance but don't want to wait? No sweat! Just send a quick SMS with your ID or TV license number to 44210. Remember, standard SMS rates apply. And presto, your balance pops right up anytime, anywhere. It's as easy as pie. So why procrastinate? Give it a try and get your info in a flash. T's and C's apply.
Right, if you missed it the first time round, well, you better pay attention to this now. tourism entrepreneurs, bloody attention to you, right? Your success starts here. The Tourism Equity Fund is your gateway to growth. Whether you're looking to expand or innovate, call SEFA, which is SEFA, not to be confused with SAFER, just to make the point, SEFA at 012-748-9600. Visit the website sefa.org.za. So sefa.org.za. SEFA is a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
If you have an opinion on the social media landscape report, let me know. If you have an opinion on South Africa versus India, tomorrow's Cricket World Cup final, let me know. If you have an opinion on the goings-on the Government of National Unity, I want to know. And on that cabinet, I want to know. And anything else that you want to get off your chest, well, there's the platform to do just that. To call in, 086 0002032, WhatsApp text or voice notes 0614 104 107. Now, you know already, and thanks for the great feedback we're getting, that we've got two guests as part of, well, not guests, they're co-hosting with me as part of the SAFM Youth Takeover, right? We've got Nokukanya Ngola, who's doing the sports, and she'll come in back just now, but Shanti Koza has been talking current affairs issues with me, and the next conversation we're going to have is around gender-based violence and security, which clearly is one of the biggest issues impacting South Africa. So what I'm going to do, Shanti, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you handle this interview.
So now we're going to be discussing how does GBV affect the youth. And as part of promoting Youth Month Contact, as I'm already here doing that, we are now going to be joined by another youngster, a fellow youngster who is Zikile Matule, who is going to share her thoughts on how young people and the society at large can play an active role in the fight against gender-based violence. Hi Zikile, and welcome to SAFM.
Thank you so much for having me on SAFM on the National Pulse. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Azekile. And just to mention, Azekile is a mentor and public speaker. So what do you think should young people do to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls and also other types of exploitation?
Thank you so much for the question. So I think firstly it's important that we understand the root cause of the causes of gender-based violence or any other violence, because that can be shown in physical, verbal, and all sorts of things. So I think also it's important that we recognize that this is such a big issue in our country, and how do you as yourself ensure that you don't find yourself being a victim or a perpetrator? So I'd say that we need to begin by doing a self-introspection and just understanding that sometimes perpetrators or people who inflict gender-based violence, you'd find that they are dealing with personal issues. It could be caused by socioeconomic issues such as poverty, neglect, social stress, or also the lack of guardianship, right? And so it's important that as young people, we cultivate safe spaces for ourselves, right? Spaces where you know that you can be in your honest form and speak out. And I think also just normalizing speaking and expressing how you feel as a young person, rather than using that as a medium, talking and having conversations with your safe space, rather than you inflicting violence on towards other people, because sometimes it is caused by people bottling so much inside of them.
Yes, Azakila, and on that note, do you think South Africa is doing enough to end gender-based violence?
Right. So I've really observed what is happening in our country, and what I would say is that I think we really need to each and every individual, each and every citizen, it's important that we play and become active citizens, right? So we can't always just depend on the government dealing and combating this issue. But I'm very interested, and I've seen how the civil society, so that would be your non-governmental organizations, and how different organizations have taken this baton of ensuring that they want to combat this issue. So when you look at it in that sense, I'm seeing that so many organizations are formed, and so many organizations are indeed doing something with this. From building shelters, shelters that help victims in their time of need. So I've realized that a lot is being done by the civil society, which is a good thing.
And now narrowing it down to families, because statistics show that almost 50% of assaults are committed by people close to us. So what role then do you think families can play in creating awareness against gender-based violence, but also holding the perpetrators accountable? Because we do know that not all cases even make it to court, and that's mainly because of families.
That is so true. I like that question, and I think it helps us decipher and understand that the family is like the building block of the society, the community, or even the country at large, right? So what I would say is, I think it is important that we normalize speaking and we normalize having conversations, where you teach your younger sisters, you teach your family at large, and just normalizing having conversations about violence. What does violence look like to a 6-year-old, 16-year-old, or even a 22-year-old, and just teaching people around in our family. This could even happen when we're having gatherings that, listen, we know that in our country we have the GBV issue, and how do we deal with it as a family? Just understanding that you have a right to report anyone who is a perpetrator. You have a right to speak up when you think that there might be something wrong is happening, but also teaching ourselves within the family as family members that we should speak up and stop bottling things. When someone is not okay, they should know that their first safe space, it's always advised that it becomes your family. So I think normalizing these such of conversations is the first step that we can take as families to help combat this issue.
All right, and my last question is just on anti-violence programs on the media, on TV. Do you think that can play a role in deterring gender-based violence?
I think that can definitely play a role, because I understand that right now we are in the phase of full IR, right? Social media, we've got our phones and all of that. And it is also proven that the more we see something, the more we become accustomed to it, the more we want to interrogate it. So if I'm going to see an advertisement on TV or on radio or whatever, that creates something in my consciousness that, okay, this is what's happening. For example, when it was the national elections in May, I think what the media did was like a build-up of advertisements and campaigns, right? And so many people knew that, listen, on the 29th of May, 2024, we are voting. But that happened over time. It happened through campaigns on television, newspapers, or any other form of media, even in social media. So yes, I do believe that having these campaigns closer to us through mediums that we mostly engage with, whether it's your newspaper or phone or television, it really does play a role, and it creates some sense of awareness in the community. It also ends up being conversations.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank
you, Azekile. Thank you so much. We have to hold it right there. We're going to news.
Right. In fact, so let me just say, Azekile Matule, thanks for your time and that fabulous conversation put together by Shanti Koza as part of what we call the SAFM Youth Takeover. Whether Greg House has got a youth takeover person next to him, I somehow suspect not. But either way, it's 5 o'clock. It's time for the news.
Indeed, thank you. Good afternoon to you, Ashraf. In this news update, screening for Mpox at ports of entry and VW in South Africa receives an environmental award. Good day to you. Screening for the Mpox is underway at points of entry across the country, including at the Lubombo port of entry with Mozambique. The Border Management Authority is screening all the people in an effort to curb the spread of the infectious disease. At least 16 positive cases of the disease have been confirmed in KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng and the Western Cape. 3 deaths have been reported nationwide. The authorities' Murdoch Ramatuba.
If travelers are found to be suspected of these diseases, they will be advised on the nearest health facilities that they can go to, or we can then facilitate with the emergency services to get them evacuated to those health facilities for assistance.
Here are the views of some people entering South Africa through the Lubombo border post.
The test they conducted by the borders, I think it's a very good thing. That is to do precautions, people, test the people, to make sure it doesn't transfer monkeypox to other people. It's a very good thing to do.
South Africa.
It's emerged that 3 people have died and 20 others injured in a collision between a bus and a bakkie near Cullinan in Pretoria. 2 boys, aged 14 years old, and a man were declared dead on the scene. It's unclear at this stage how many patients have been discharged. Emergency Services spokesperson Jas Mabas.
An adult male and 2 boys were declared dead by paramedics on the scene. 26 patients with injuries ranging from minor to moderate were transported by the Gauteng Emergency Medical Services as well as other private ambulance services to between Mamelodi Hospital as well as Stanza Bupape Clinic. The cause of the accident is under police investigation.
The EFF Secretary General Marshal Dlamini has been handed a suspended sentence for the assault of a police official after the State of the Nation address in 2019. He's been slapped with an 18-month sentence, which has been suspended for 5 years. He was also fined 6,000 rand. The EFF says it's noted the Cape Town Regional Court's decision. EFF spokesperson Leanne Matthys insists that Dlamini was acting in defense of the EFF leadership after police confirmed there was a threat on party leader Julius Malema on the day in question.
The rationale used by the court in the sentencing reaffirms our view that the case in its entirety was vindictive and it was part of a broader attempt to provoke and then criminalize the leadership of the EFF. It is our firm view that there was a premeditated agenda to prevent the EFF leadership from executing its legislative responsibilities at the SONA on that day.
Volkswagen Group Africa, based in Kariga in the Eastern Cape, has received an award at the Volkswagen Awards in Germany for plastic recycling in the Zero Impact Factory Environmental category. Strategic Plant Development Manager at VW, Mike Petrie.
Waste reduction is one of our priority areas, particularly when it comes to the environmental side of things. And since we started monitoring it and focusing on it, we've reduced our overall waste to landfill by 73%. And this has brought about a positive impact on our environmental measurement by 57%. Ultimately, our goal is to be net zero beyond 2030, and this contributes towards that. We're really proud of the initiative and the fact that the contribution has been recognized for our Kariga plant.
Top story this hour, and it's the latest news, of course, that we give you every hour. There's been screening now for Mpox at ports of entry across the country, including at the Lubombo port of entry with the country Mozambique. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khoos.
In your sports this hour, Proteas are ready for a tough final and the Springboks revives the All Blacks tours. More on other sports at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound in Germiston has delays towards Refinery Road. The N12 westbound in Alberton has a crash before the R59 Reading interchange, and the N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Samrand Road. In KZN, the N3 in Pinetown is queuing at Marion Hill Toll Plaza. The N2 southbound is slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 eastbound in Ashburton has a stationary truck reported after Linfield Park and slow moving traffic reported throughout the central Durban CBD area. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound queuing towards Highlands Drive. The N1 outbound has a stationary truck reported after Plattekloof Road exit. Van Riebeeck Road southbound in Kuilsriver is queuing at Stellenbosch Arterial Road, and the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Tell you what, if you heard the voice of the person reading the sports headlines, that would have not been to me as always. That is Nokukanye Ngola, and that is because of the SFM youth takeover. So we've got her, we've got Shanti Khoza as well, part of it. And I'll tell you what, so they've been with us for the last 2 hours. They're going to continue staying with us for at least another hour. Well, not at least, definitely an hour for sure, right? But here's the bigger question to all of us, right? In SAFM opening its doors to others for the youth takeover, what can we do as a country to accelerate access for the youth to bigger opportunities as part of a national youth takeover, like every single day? And if you have any thoughts and like really bright ideas, well, let me know. I want to know, absolutely. So you can WhatsApp, text, voice note 0614 104 107. What's your bright ideas in terms of giving youth opportunities in terms of their national youth takeover. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not too sure how the youth perspective would be around South Africa's negotiations around the government of national unity. Well, I say South Africa's 10 political parties with a few others on the outside looking in, right? My guest now is Professor Stephen Friedman, who's a political analyst from the University of Joburg. Prof. Friedman, appreciate your time as always. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, a week is definitely a long time, and we know that. Before we get talking, let me do this. There has been an IFP press conference in Durban today, and the leader of the IFP, Belenkosi Hlabisa, spoke to all South Africans and expressed certain concerns, particularly around where to next for the government of national unity. This is what he said.
The Treasurer General of the IFP and the Chairperson of the National Campaign Committee, Mr. Singh, who's also part of the IFP's negotiating team, Mr. Peter Meni, the Chairperson of the IFP.
Okay, the line's not very clear. The sound's not the greatest. I get that. But having said that, Prof. Friedman, let's move on to your thoughts, right? What do you make? I understand there's a meeting planned today between John Steenhuisen of the DA, Cyril Ramaphosa of the ANC. What do you make of what's happened in the last few days from a position where I expected, Sunday night last week was the announcement day for Cabinet? It just seems so appropriate. A lot has happened since then.
No, well, I don't think that was realistic. I know that was the line the politicians put out, but it wasn't realistic. I mean, what's happening, Ashraf, is that, as I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, this is not a government of national unity, and we would be doing ourselves a great favour if we stopped calling it that, even though the politicians insist on calling that. It's a coalition between two parties who have been shouting at each other for the last 20 years and don't much like each other. And the reason they're in a coalition is that they don't have other options. And what they're trying to do by leaking their letters to the media and bad-mouthing the other guy is to increase their bargaining position. Of course, the IFP is an important player here. I talk about the two parties because if you look at the agreement they signed, it essentially says that the ANC and the DA take the decisions. They're going to have to listen to the IFP because if they don't listen to the IFP, they will lose KwaZulu-Natal. But they don't really have to listen to any of the other parties. What they have to do is hammer out some sort of agreement. And I think what we need to do in a situation like this, if we want to get a sense of where things are going, is to say, well, what are their options if they don't reach an agreement? And neither side has great options. The DA spent the entire election campaign telling its voters that a coalition between the ANC and the EFF or the MK party would be what he called a doomsday coalition. Now, as things stand, the only way that doomsday coalition can happen is if the DA pulls out of these negotiations. So it would basically be telling its supporters, look, we care more about one or two cabinet positions than we do about stopping this doomsday coalition. If you look at the ANC, it doesn't have great options either. It can talk to the EFF, but if it talks to the EFF, they don't have a majority between them. They're going to have to bring other parties in. They don't get together themselves. They don't get on themselves very well, and I'm not sure that I can see that working. There's talk about ANC, EFF plus the MK party, which sounds to me very much like saying you must tell everybody in the ANC that the last 20 years never happened. That happened. And that means that if they were to go that route, the ANC itself would probably split. So, there's a lot of noise in the environment, but my sense is that when push comes to shove, they need each other and they're going to have to try to find a compromise, and my expectation is still that that's what they'll do. Okay, it's interesting that you're not part of those negotiations because I'm trying to think if you were part of it and your points that you've just made, and I'm sure they're very aware of it. They'll be listening on the radio now anyways. Like, actually, Stephen's right. We really don't have a choice. Do you think they know that? That there's a public spat. There's a public spat that takes place, which is an act of bravado, but in reality, they know they're stuck with each other. Yeah. Yes, they try to increase their bargaining positions. That's how the game is played. You know, Ashraf, some of us are ancient enough to remember a man called Cyril Ramaphosa when he was the chief ANC negotiator at the constitutional talks at the beginning of the 1990s. And, you know, you saw the letter he wrote to John Steenhuisen. You know, he used to say similar things about F.W. de Klerk and about Rolf Meyer. And what he was trying to do was to make sure that the ANC got the best deal possible. But he always knew that they would have to settle with the National Party. And I think that he and the people around him know that they will have to reach a compromise with the DA. And I'm sure the DA know that too. So, you know, I think it's very important not to you know, what's essentially, as I say, going on here is they're both trying to get the best deal for themselves possible.
Okay.
But at some point they'll have to say, look, if we carry this on, we'll get no deal at all, and we better reach an agreement.
Okay, now Shanti Koza is with us. She's part of the SAFM Youth Takeover, Stephen. So she's going to ask you a question. Go ahead, Shanti.
So my question is, with all these letters that are happening and information being leaked to the media, clearly those negotiations are not in good faith. Do you think we might be heading for divorce between the two parties in the coming days?
You see, I mean, it's a good question because, you know, if this really was a government of national unity, we should be very worried. But it's a political bargain. And, you know, as I said, politicians go into political bargains because they have to, not because they want to. And the question we should always ask is not, I mean, is it in good faith? Well, you know, as I said to Ashraf, it's two parties trying to get the best deal possible.
So Stephen, perhaps...
The fact that they don't like each other doesn't mean that they can't actually govern the same.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, Stephen. Maybe here's the important part now. You spoke about bargaining positions, right? And they want the best deal for each other. So, in your opinion, we're talking about right now, right? What is the best deal for the ANC right now? What is the best deal for the DA right now? And what are they likely to get?
Look, my understanding of where they are at the moment, amidst all the noise, etc., is that they've actually agreed on just about everything except the Trade and Industry Ministry. So, in other words, the DA has agreed to the ANC has offered the DA several ministries. They've accepted that. The DA story, which may or may not be true, I don't know, I'm not a fly on the wall there, is that the ANC offered them the Trade and Industry Ministry, and then that Mr. Ramaphosa consulted his colleagues who said no thanks, and that was withdrawn. So it seems to me that one of two things will going to happen. Either it will have to be unwithdrawn, or more likely, Mr. Ramaphosa will say to Mr. Steenhuisen, look, I couldn't give you the Trade and Industry Ministry, but I'm going to have to give you X and Y instead, and that will be probably the way in which this issue gets solved.
Okay, Shanti, go ahead once again.
Yeah, there's just so much uncertainty regarding the ministerial positions as well, like you mentioned. And it gets me asking, how are things going to look for us in South Africa in the next 5 years? Are we going to be living in this uncertainty?
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes in a sense. Look, I have to warn everybody in a sense. What we're seeing now is the future. It's the future in the sense that I don't think any party in this country is going to get 50% of the vote probably ever again. Because it's very unusual around the world. And for that reason, coalitions are really going to be what we're about. And that is uncertain in the sense that, we're no longer living in the world we've been living in for the last 30 years in which we know exactly who's in power and they'll be in power for the next election. But I think what we will see happening, and it will probably happen within the life of this government, is that they will adjust to the situation. And, there will still be quite a bit of name-calling and so on, but basically the uncertainty will be reduced because, they will learn how to operate in this new situation and they will adjust accordingly.
Okay, so just the last thing. If we're saying what you said, what we're seeing now is the future, right, then are you hopeful that this very unusual coming together of two, erstwhile enemies, very, very slating of each other, will come together, and that future that we see now in the present may well be best for the country right now, outside of ideological and philosophical issues.
Well, Ashraf, look, first of all, let me say that I think that an ANC-DA coalition at the moment, it's not a question of whether it's best for the country. It's the only option available for the reasons that I've explained. So it's a reality we're going to have to adjust to. And secondly, as far as what happens going ahead is concerned, I think this is part of the process. I don't think, in 15 years' time, the ANC and the DA will be governing together. But I think what you're going to see happening is, that this will kickstart a process. Some people in the ANC won't like this arrangement and will go out on their own. Some people in the DA, similarly, etc. And you'll have new parties emerging and new coalitions emerging. And I think that's where we'll be going over the next few
And
years.
that's where we'll leave it with you, Stephen Friedman. As always, much appreciate your time and your analysis on, making simple what is very, very confusing for the majority of South Africans. So thank you for your time. Have a great weekend. And chilled if you can. I don't know whether it can be quite chilled at all. I doubt it very much. Okay, are you chilled on
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
And you penned this article, interrogating whether or not South African parties must now learn the art of people-centered coalitions. Why is it so important to have this conversation?
This is a new phase in how politics is done. And the fact that political parties have come together in one coalition will perhaps create more focus on party interests, but then what happens is the people are then sort of left aside in that conversation. Parties go back to their interests and forget the reason why they are in politics in the first place.
Professor Dorcas Etang, and of course she's with the Faculty of Management Sciences at the Durban University of Technology.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, how about you commenting? I certainly want to get your point on the conversation I've had with Prof. Stephen Friedman. Let me know what you think about what he just said. And I mean, amongst the key factors, what we're seeing now is the future. And this is exactly what we've got. And the two parties, for them, it's the only option available. So for all the public spatting, even from people calling in, is like Friedman saying, that's it. There is no other option at all. Right, let's move on. In fact, I think we're going to just connect with our guest in a moment. We've got a thumbs up. We can talk to her. So here's another important issue. Having spoken about the social media landscape and the rise of TikTok in South Africa, here's a question. What are the current conversations and concerns around TikTok and its relevance to South African users, right? Now, we're talking about this because of the ongoing global debate about TikTok's potential ban in many countries, or some countries, and the growing concerns surrounding data privacy, national security, and user safety. So with me is Kaylin Kluter, who is the Senior Cybersecurity Channel Account Manager of ESET. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and listeners, and thank you so much for having EC today.
Thank you. Now, it's not just myself talking to you today, because we have the SFM Youth Takeover, which is a day of giving space to young South Africans, and I've given space on the National Pulse to Shanti Khoza, who will, in fact, ask the first question. Shanti, go ahead.
Kaylin, what are some of the key reasons behind the U.S. government's interest in banning TikTok? Can you please take us through that?
Good afternoon, Santia, and thank you for the great question. So the primary reason TikTok is under constant scrutiny is due to privacy concerns. The Chinese-owned application has lawmakers concerned about sensitive data being shared with the Chinese government.
Yeah, do we have you there? Sorry, Kaylin?
Hi.
Yeah, I think
Sorry,
we just lost that last, but just maybe repeat that point again.
So the Chinese-owned application has lawmakers extremely concerned about sensitive data that is shared with Chinese government. So that is one of the main reasons why TikTok is under constant scrutiny due to privacy concerns.
Okay.
Can you please elaborate a bit more in terms of how does a platform like TikTok compromise national security or data privacy?
So, it's mainly due to how the data is collected. So many of TikTok users don't really go through the terms and conditions when signing up to an application, not only TikTok, but most of social media platforms. So TikTok, for one, mentions in their privacy policy that they automatically collect data when you use the platform. So that is whether you are a subscribed user or not. So they can check things such as your internet activity, your search history, things like your location, your contacts, almost, giving them complete access to the contents of your phone, even though this is not necessary to use the application.
So, is that unique to TikTok? What about the other social media platforms?
It's definitely not unique to TikTok. There's a lot of risks associated with many, social media platforms. But I suppose the reason why TikTok is under such scrutiny is because of the data or the application collecting sensitive data, often without the user's knowledge. And, lawmakers believe not only TikTok, but all social media applications can also meddle with things such as, elections, spread misinformation, and also, again, sow division.
And there is a general concern about TikTok and its potential impact on younger users. You know, how it's addictive and the potential exposure to harmful content, and also risk of cyberbullying and mental health challenges that parents are concerned about. How do you think this should be addressed?
Great question. So, there's many things, and social media has harmful impacts on children. And I think it's very important for us as parents to make sure that we have proactive measures in place to ensure that the internet is a safe place for everyone. You cannot always be 100% sure, but something on TikTok, for example, a setting called family pairing is a good way to regulate activities on devices. So, for example, it allows you to regulate screen time. So you, as the parent, you choose when your child has access to, certain social media sites, during what time, maybe a time that you are home from work, or during the holiday period or over weekends. You can also filter inappropriate content using the specific setting. You can also limit, search functionality or limit who can contact them. So there are proactive measures parents can put in place to ensure that children are, protected online. But I think what is the most important is, educating our children, educating our teens to make sure that they have good social media hygiene, because, there's nothing greater than, educating them.
Just the last thing before I let you go, or we let you go, Kaylin, you spoke about, user knowledge of user activities without the user's knowledge, right? So are you saying to me that if I use TikTok specifically, that there are certain aspects of what I do and how I do it that somebody, let's call it Mr. or Mrs. TikTok, has knowledge of it, and they're using it to what degree?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's not to say that they're using that data. We can't really say what is being used or the data is being used with, but what we can say is that they are collecting that data. So, with that being said, social media users can also take proactive steps and measures to ensure their security, to, for example, disable location services, limit of sharing personal information, enable multi-factor authentication, because as a cybersecurity organization, we often come across, hacks and breaches. So don't click on links containing malicious software. And again, use your privacy settings, take a look through them, and use blogs and online information to keep safe. For example, ESET has a very useful platform called We Live Security, award-winning platform where we share a lot of content to keep users safe online. That's children, teens, and adults alike.
Okay, certainly we need to check out ESET, E-S-E-T. Here's the last thing. In broadcasting terms, you have the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, and it suggests just that. If you have a complaint, that's who you take it to. So is there a Social Media Complaints Commission in South Africa?
In South Africa, so myself, I'm not 100% aware of what the Complaints Commission details are. But yeah, we can do some research and provide, yourselves with that details once you do have that. But for now, we can't really, give advice on on that.
Understandable. Okay, Kaylin Klutcher, thanks for your time. From ESET, E-S-E-T, Senior Cybersecurity Channel Account Manager. Much appreciate your time, right? Right, we're gonna go to some, that was very interesting, right?
Very interesting.
Much so, yeah. Let's play some WhatsApps. People wanting to comment about many things, and here's one very topical about Stephen Friedman's opinions. And here's a caller who does not agree with him.
Ashraf, Stephen Freeman, it's not entirely correct to say DA-ANC coalition is the only option available. There are other options. You must stop lying. Thank you.
No, I don't think he's lying, because you see, lying is someone he's giving an opinion. So you don't have to agree with his opinion. Lying is telling you that the walls are white when the walls are pink. He's giving an opinion. And he's saying it's effectively the only workable option. It is in that context of the conversation. Basically, he's suggesting the ANC EFF won't last. That's what he's saying. Now, of course, you may have another opinion, and you're entitled to share that opinion, which I'd love to hear, right? But there's more, right? There's another comment about, we spoke about parliamentary debates or presidential debates. How's this one?
Hello, Ashraf. This is Mutlatsi from Pretoria. I would like to hear the debate between Ramaphosa and Jacob Zuma. That should be interesting, because I think those two can challenge each other anyway. But they can read very well. I think they can read. But thinking on their feet, no, I don't think so.
Oh, well, there you are. Okay, lots to consider there. Can you imagine that debate? Ramaphosa versus Zuma. Presidential debate, if that were possible. It's not going to happen, but imagine if that was going to happen. Yeah, I'd be watching it for sure, right? Maybe a moderator. Can you just imagine that? I'd have a huge job there on my hands. Let's get the news headlines now. It's 5:30. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. The IFP leaders calling on the DA and the ANC to conclude outstanding issues regarding negotiations on the government of national unity. Screening for the Mpox disease is underway at points of entry across the country, including at the Lebombo port of entry with Mozambique. And Israel's finance minister says the government will promote West Bank settlements and punitive measures against the Palestinian Authority in response to Palestinian moves against Israel on the international stage. Full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Sunninghill has a crash before Rivonia Road exit. In Germiston, the M2 eastbound has delays towards Refinery Road, and the N12 eastbound has a crash after Edenvale Road exit. The N12 westbound in Alberton has a crash before the R59 Reading interchange. In Pretoria, Eskom Patleli Drive northbound has delays towards Moot Street. The N1 northbound is queuing towards Pumalani Toll Plaza, and Solomon Mhlangu Drive has delays at the N4 highway. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pinetown is queuing at Murray and Hill Toll Plaza. The M4 has roadworks with traffic restrictions at Tongaat Beach, and the M4 southbound has a crash reported near Quality Street. Then the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound has a crash before the N2 highway exit. Bakencrest Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Helen Suzman Boulevard inbound is slow moving towards Bakencrest Street, and Govan Becky Road has roadworks with traffic restrictions in that Hanover Park area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, it's time for sport, and as you know, we've got the SAFM youth takeover. Some suggest it could be a permanent takeover. I don't really know, and that is so. In a case like this today, we've got the youngster called Tumi,
yeah,
and we've got
the
veteran called Dokukanya. So you can go ahead.
Yeah, no,
well, I'll
it's
give
still
you guys
a tag
to negotiate.
team. I've actually even got a beautiful tweet that I got, but I'll read it just a little bit later.
Right.
And we're definitely going to talk all things the Proteas, because it's all systems go for the T20 final, where South Africa will face India at the Kensington Oval tomorrow. And Captain Aiden Markram says because of their experience, they are not worried about the pitch conditions in Bridgetown ahead of the final.
I think because we've been doing it for most of our careers, you jump from venue to venue where conditions are quite different. So it's again just adapting to whatever's in front of you and playing the pitch and the game that's in front of you. So we won't look too much into it. We'll try find ways to always take wickets with the ball, and from a batting point of view, try get to a score that's defendable. So not looking too much into conditions. Like I've mentioned, both teams have to play on the same wicket, and ultimately, if you can develop some plans and come up with some plans on the day that can give you a good chance to win, then hopefully it works out that way.
On the other hand, the Proteas women were in action today. In the one test against India, India posted 5-2-5-4-4 in their first inning at Stamp.
Then moving on to football, Morgan Mamila says that Baraka FC chairman Kurishi Mpatlele has asked him to continue as head coach next season. The future of Dan Malisela still hangs in the balance after he was suspended by the club over allegations that he had been offering players to rival clubs, which promoted Mamila taking over the remaining matches during the PSL playoffs.
He asked me to continue because he said his exact word was that we promoted this team together. So if we did it in 2015, what's stopping us now? And one thing for sure, that's the team that has made me who I am. And I can't say no to a big project like that.
In the meantime, Cape Town City has unveiled Fortune Makaringa as the latest addition to their squad. For the new DStv Premiership campaign, he joins on a free transfer after having to come to an end of his contract at Orlando Pirates last month. And this one of the least 7 new players have been promised by Chairman John Comista. Kylian Mbappe is back in France starting lineup for Tuesday's Euro 2024 clash with Poland. His first appearance since suffering a broken nose against Austria just over a week ago. Mbappe got injured in their win over the Austria on the 17th of June and did not play in any part in the last Friday's goalless draw with New Zealand. On to rugby news. SA Rugby have confirmed that an agreement has been reached with New Zealand to host a full-fledged All Blacks tour for the first time in 30 years. The All Blacks will tour South Africa in 2026 to play a 3-test series against the Springbok.
Well, New Zealand will also face the Stormers, Bulls, Lions and Sharks, as well as a South Africa 8 team, and the possibility of including the Maori All Blacks and All Blacks A and Black Ferns on the tour is also being explored. It will be the first time that New Zealand tours South Africa since 1996, with the All Blacks winning the Test Series 2-1. Then in tennis, top seed Iga Swiatek was handed a tricky first-round test at Wimbledon as the world number one was drawn against American Sofia Kenin. Emma Raducanu, on the other hand, has been drawn against Russia's Ekaterina. Then women's second seed Coco Gauff will play in an all-American first-round tie against Caroline Dolehide, while third seed Arina Sabalenka takes on American Emina Bektas. In motorsport, Red Bull's Max Verstappen was the fastest in a practice at the Austrian Grand Prix ahead of McLaren's Oscar Piastri. Mercedes drivers Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, who were the quickest in the early part of the session, did not do a run on the soft tire like the others late on. And that's it from our side. And as I did promise before we go, a guy by the name of Menzi Mbata sent us this X saying that, oh, Mr. Ashraf and Dumi, please do tell those two young beautiful women who are co-hosting with you that they're doing a great job and we love and support them. They're so eloquent and smart. It's like they were born for this.
And what about us? Like, are we like...
we should quit our jobs.
Because you see, I heard the tweet. He said, we must tell them.
You know?
But he never said a word about me.
We need to
and
quit.
about you. We just have to be the messengers.
Clearly Monday, we're not coming back. But before I say goodbye, Noku, how was today?
Today was nice.
Mm-hmm.
It was fine.
Did you learn a thing or two?
I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
What did you learn? Like, what's like the number one thing you learned that you didn't know before?
I've learned how they prepare the news bulletin.
Yeah.
How things work in the background and stuff.
Okay.
She's a journalism student, just by the way.
Okay, so
and she's in first semester. So for someone that's in her first semester already on air, it says a lot about.
So when a lecturer talks about, you know what, one day you can actually do broadcasting, you say, actually, been there, done that.
Exactly.
Last thing to you, is there a sports broadcaster that you really admire?
Yes.
Give me a name.
She's right next to me.
No, I want a name. You didn't give me a name.
Do me.
Well, okay.
Listen, I need to say goodbye from us. Noku, it was absolutely amazing to have you here and wishing you nothing but the best for the future. But from my side, Dumin Khapele, Mudimukyo.
There we are. We'll do it again. More sport. Well, on Monday. And hopefully we talk about the World Cup winners, the Proteas. That sounds great.
Say ROBOT_BOII robot the Cashman SABC 1 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Deal or no deal, celebrity game. Let's get it.
Five-time champions Bafana Bafana and three-time champs the Zebras are both searching for the essential 3 points in their second Group A contest. This is the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2024. Experience the beauty of the Southern African Derby. South Africa versus Botswana on Saturday 29 June at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
I get that. All right, let's get to the markets now. In fact, we're going to talk about other things in terms of a cure for TB that I think you'd be very, very interested to read about or to know about. But let's get to the markets with the MoneyWeb market update, as always, with Jimmy Moyaha. Hi, Jimmy.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm pretty well indeed. Looking forward, as you know, my mind's on a sporting weekend. Like, it's pretty obvious, right? But anyway, that's where my mind is. Yeah.
Well, it's a good time to focus on sports because the markets have closed out the week in great territory. They've closed out the month in very, very positive territory. Financial stocks were up about 3% today as well. Industrials up 0.4%. Resources let us down, but they were down about 1%. But nonetheless, the all-share finished up 0.9%, so almost a full percent. The top 40, almost a full percent there as well. And the main movers from our perspective were, as I said, those financial stocks. I mean, if you look at the likes of First Rand up more than 4%, Santam more than 4%, Alex Forbes more than 4%, Capitec more than 4%, gaining about 100 Rand a share today on that side. The likes of Pick and Pay having a good day, also up. They were up 3.7%, Discovery up 3.6%. So really, really good showing from our financial stocks. As I said, miners didn't have such a good showing, and if we look at some of the miners that didn't have a good day, the likes of Harmony were down 3%. Goldfields down 2.3% as well. Richmond down also giving back about 2% there, and the Copper 360 family giving back 3.5% from their perspective. So a bit of a up and down kind of day, but we take the strong closing to the month, and that was also evidenced from the performance of the rand, clawing back a whole 1.2% against the dollar, 1.1% against the pound, and 1% against the euro. It's currently at about 19.55 against the euro and about 23.06 cents against the pound. So very, very good gains for the rand there. It looks as though all of the markets, or at least local markets, felt that today was a big last-ditch push for the end of the month of June, because obviously from Monday, the new month would then kick in. So this was technically the last trading day of the month. If we look at some international markets, they also seem to have a bit of a good day, starting with Asian markets. Sydney was up about 0.1%, Hong Kong flat, mainland China up 0.7% or 0.75% there. The Nikkei in Tokyo up 0.2% in European markets. They were a bit mixed, with the DAX and FTSE almost flat and cancelling each other out there, but the CAC 40 in France down about almost 1%. Obviously there are concerns in terms of the French side with the looming elections and the speculation that's being created around that. US markets are having a good day at the moment. They are up almost 1/3% in each case. So Dow, S&P and Nasdaq up about 1/3%. And if we look at some commodities pricing before we go, the gold price recovering quite nicely, $2,330 an ounce there. The silver price just under $30 at $29.28. Platinum back above $1,000 at $1,017, while palladium still struggling around that $980 level. The price of Brent crude, $86.42 a barrel. We are expecting a fuel cut next week, but we might be in for a fuel hike in the month thereafter if this persists, but we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how the Central Energy Fund sees that from their perspective. But from our side, it looks as though we're going to close out the month of June in positive territory on all fronts, and we take that win. I mean, I'll give you a quick summary of where the top 40 is closing out about just under 3% in the green for the month. And if we have a quick look at where the rand would be closing out the month, also gaining some ground, also stronger against against the dollar and the other major currencies. Against the dollar, we're closing out the month there around 1.4% in the green, so 1.4% stronger that's for the day. For the month, that's slightly different. That would be 3.3%. We gained 3.3% from 19 Rand to about 18 Rand 24. So a very strong close to the month for South African markets. Hopefully we get this momentum continue into the month of July once that cabinet has been announced. We'll keep an eye on that and other stories. But for now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
Perfect. Great chatting to you, and you have a good show and a good weekend and a good win all sides in terms of our cricket team. Thanks for that, Jimmy. Right? Okay, let's do this. I'll take your calls after this.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.1 FM in Bombela. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, it's been a fascinating co-hosting experience myself and Shanti for the next. We got 15 more minutes to go, and we'll continue talking about the issues that really matter. Let's get some of the calls in the meantime. Mvusi Wekwaya in Eastern Cape. Well, at least we're talking to you for a change, so you can't say we don't take your calls. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good. Listen, there's only one in Mvusi Wekwaya that I know from the Eastern Cape, and that's you.
Let me appreciate your co-hosts. They're beautiful. They're brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
You guys did a great job here bringing them in.
Well, wonderful. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this. So Shanti, let's get you. We got the listener, and he's a caller. So he wants to say something about the Government of National Unity. But I suggest you just introduce him and you can lead the discussion. Go ahead.
Hi, Vusi. Take us on with your comment.
Look, a few weeks ago, I said I'm not happy with the because of the detrimental effect it will have on the ANC.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now in that zone, the first part of that zone, where any discussion is driven by what the DA wants. Okay. The most problematic aspect now is that you've got more other political parties in the GNU And all we hear about are the positions that the DA is lasting after. We are not hearing anything about what is being talked about with other political parties. Now, for me, this thing is going to break down because these other political parties are not just there to eat muffins. They are there representing their voters, and I don't think they like what is happening. I'm sorry to say this. The GNU is not going to last. It is not in the best interest of our country. We need to find a solution that focuses on the interests of our country, and getting those positions to the DA is reversing all the gains that is made over the last 30
Vusi,
years.
I hear what you're saying, and my question is, when you say that this is not what the voters want, in the first place, are the voters not the ones who put us in this situation in the first place? Well, us voters.
Well, the outcome of the voting did. I don't think there's a voter who went to the ballot paper or ballot box to say, I'm voting for a hung parliament. The outcome that we have is a coincidence of election. But we are here now, and I think all we can do, all the political party leaders can do, is to wisen up and look at things that are going to ensure continuation of transformation in our country. If we have a representative government, an inclusive government, it's good. But that government should not be driven by one political party wanting key portfolios of the executive. I really don't think that is going to be good.
Okay, definitely. So we are in a situation where voters put these parties into power, and now these parties are looking after their own interests, basically.
And those interests are coming from one side, from the DA. I voted for the ANC, and I'm not happy that the ANC was propped up by the DA. I would really love the leadership to look at other options and engage us about what those options are.
Okay, but let's end with this then, Musikaya. So if not the ANC DA multi-party GNU coalition, then what?
In the multi-party landscape, there are other political parties that can help us to form a government that has got 51 or 50-something%, so that you can be able to drive a legislative agenda. For now, we are talking about everyone being in the tent, but we're not listening to what these other political parties are saying. If the ANC, for instance, were to say, what other options do we have? What other political parties are giving us? Because all the political parties that did not get what they wanted out of the election, they've wisened up. EFF knows that they don't have 2/3. No one has 2/3. All the demands that they put in their manifesto are not going to materialize. So the conversation gets mature in that point, and all other political parties are giving something. It's not just about the DA or what posts they want. We need to look at what is it that will work for South Africans. What is it that will transform?
Well, that's the question. We don't really know what will work, and I mean, none of us are sure. And to be very fair, if the party that you voted for, the ANC, if they did what they should have been doing in the last 30 years, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We're having this conversation because many people feel that the ANC has stopped delivering, and that's another conversation. So don't answer that now because it'll take us half an hour. Thanks for your time.
But
you know
did
that.
not stop delivering. There were challenges.
Well, but whatever. They are the ruling party. They are the ruling party, and you know that, right? And that's where the problem has started in the first place. Okay, we'll chat again sometime next week. Right, let's just check if we've got voice notes. No, we'll see if we can play voice notes right after this.
In the heart of darkness, a beacon of light emerges. A brand new season is coming your way with your 2024 Miss South Africa Top 30. Hosted by our reigning queen, Miss South Africa, we embark on a transformative journey. Join us for the spectacular new season of Crown Chasers. Crown Chasers is back. Starts 29 June at 8:30 p.m. only on S3 Open Up.
Are you ready to take your brand to a whole new level? Have you ever thought about how big companies use strong PR to get more people to know about their brands? The Allure Group presents the inaugural Building a Brand Through PR Masterclass.
Join us on Wednesday, July 3rd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the DP World Wonders Stadium in Johannesburg. Learn from 12 industry experts as they share their case studies and personal testimonies that will transform your approach to brand building. Visit www.prmasterclass.co.za to get your tickets. Only 650 rands for an in-person experience, or join us virtually for just 350 rands. Don't miss this chance to master the art of PR and take your brand to the next level. Building a brand through PR Masterclass, powered by Independent Media.
Do you remember the cool times of Sports Buzz?
Coming up on Sports
Buzz used to be the go-to young people's sports show in Mzansi, Africa. The multi-sport award-winning youth magazine show. A great platform that profiled young athletes and teams. The glory days of Sports Buzz are back in a newly revamped youth sports show with a wow vibe.
Goats like us.
Yeah, GOATs, greatest of all time. Experience youth excellence in sports, profiling of active athletes and teams, latest news in the world of youth sport, the active voice of school sports, and promoting a healthy lifestyle among the youth. Do not miss out on
Goats Like Us.
Your front row seat awaits you every Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DCT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
Hashtag GOATs, greatest of all time.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Quick comment on that comment with Mvusi Kaya. Lukman saying, why does a guy like Vusi and many others think the DA does not have a place in this coalition agreement? First, they got the second highest votes. Second, not only white people voted DA. Third, those who voted DA wants to see what the DA can do for South Africa. Thank you. There you are. Maybe point made. And just another one very quickly on that issue. This Mvusi guy is talking hogwash as the voters voted for an inclusive government. And it seems to me that some people who are claiming to be ANC members don't know what the ANC is standing for. And mine, this guy was once a spokesperson of the Eastern Cape Premier. But I certainly know that from TG. Right, let's get into other things now. It's myself and Shanti Kosa who's co-hosting. With me we have Prof. Bhavesh Khanna, who's the head of the School of Pathology at the Wits University's Faculty of Health Sciences. Prof. Khanna, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Ashraf. Thanks for having me.
Right, so we have Shanti Kosa co-hosting with us, and we're talking to you because I understand that, your university has got some groundbreaking issues around vaccines for TB that we need to be talking about. So tell us about it.
Yes, so what we've been able to develop at Wits University is a next generation candidate TB vaccine. So the current vaccine we have for TB is the BCG vaccine. So this vaccine comprises whole bacteria that look very similar to TB bacteria. So when we immunize babies with it, they develop an immune response that protects them against TB infection. And that vaccine works really well in babies. It protects them against TB meningitis, which is a form of TB that occurs in the brain. But the immunity we have as babies wanes as we get older, as we become teenagers and as we become adults. And as you know, TB is a huge problem in South Africa, and the vaccine doesn't protect adults. So we set out to see if we could make this vaccine better by editing the surface structure of the vaccine.
Okay, so in terms of the change here, in terms of what you're saying, we've got the existing vaccine that you spoke about. In terms of this public health development, how is it? Where are we down the line with it? How is it likely to change things?
So currently, one of the reasons that that BCG is not as immunogenic as we'd like it to be is on the surface of the vaccine. There's a small chemical modification that doesn't allow some components of the immune response to actually get turned on. And so what we did was we took the vaccine and edited its genome such that we were able to remove that chemical modification, and the resulting vaccine now is able to activate new components of the immune response. And so the experiments we've done thus far in animals, in small animals, are in mice, and we've been able to show that this new vaccine is superior to the current one. But we still have to create a prototype that's more suitable for clinical trials and do some safety assessments in animals before we can move into humans. So we still have a ways to go before we can actually immunize people with this and achieve the potential public health benefit that's promised by vaccines.
Okay, and the issue around TB and the infections of TB in South Africa and the causes of death around TB remain a big issue in our country, right?
I mean, definitely. If you look at the WHO 2022 figures, we had roughly 300,000 people who fell ill with TB. More than half of these individuals were also infected with HIV. And so this is something that's very unique in South Africa. The coincidence of TB and HIV, these two diseases drive each other, and they really make it incredibly difficult to eliminate the disease from our communities. And also very difficult to treat individuals because you've got to give ARVs and you have to give TB medication. One has to time that properly so that you don't paradoxically make either of the disease worse. So it is a significant public health concern. But I feel like, as a country in South Africa, we've made some significant strides towards TB elimination. Over the years, we were one of the first countries that rolled out new TB testing, a new molecular testing that was much more faster. More recently, we rolled out injection-free and oral regimen for drug-resistant TB. So whilst we still have a ways to go, South Africa has for a long time been on the right trajectory, reducing the number of individuals infected with TB and reducing mortality.
Okay, that's it. That's where we're going to leave it. Prof. Bhavesh Khanna, head of the School of Pathology at the Wits University's Faculty of Health Sciences. Right, before we wrap up, lots of compliments to both you guys. Okay, Shanti and Nokukanya, she's gone, but I mean, thanks to both of you guys. And some of it, good evening. I'm so proud of your co-host, especially the young lady that said she couldn't play sport because of her weight. Now she gets to do sport for the whole country from Tami in Edenvale. But I mean, that's not all. There's another one. Well done. Job well done. Excuse me, to your co-presenters, Ashraf. They are naturals, and that's what we worried about, myself and Tumi. Points made. And there's a whole lot more. But I tell you what, besides listening, this entire show is streamed live visually. So if you go to the X platform, Twitter, and go to Facebook, as well as YouTube, you'll find a lot of the interactions we have visually, and you can see us all for the last 3 hours. So please do that, and maybe comment on the X platforms. Are you on Twitter?
I'm not on Twitter.
Okay, well, you see. Okay, well, I'll tell you what.
I follow what's happening there, though.
You follow, that's fine. Okay, you can certainly check it out and give us your comments further, and I'll certainly pass you to both of them. Well, I mean, it's almost time for us to say goodbye. So, what is your expectation? What's come out of the expectation? So, expectation and reality.
Ashraf, I thought, obviously it's current affairs. I'm thinking hot topics, hot questions as well from the listeners. But then it was a very good interaction. It was also a good learning platform. The conversations were really great. But also, how fast everything moves and managing that. And I mean, it's almost 6 o'clock and here we are. So it was amazing. It was exciting. I had fun.
And this is a drive time show, and you've driven 1.5 hours.
Yes, I have from Secunda.
To get here?
Yes.
Why was it important for you to be here?
It was really important for me because of the platform, but also showcasing what young people can do to also put themselves out there and to get things done. If you just sit in your little corner, nobody's not going to come there and fetch you from that corner that you'll be there. So you have to put yourself out there. You have to take up opportunities that come your way.
Well, I mean, you're a good example. You knock the doors down, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. And if I can say this, I mean, we first met up a few years ago at a Great Star Awards, and I spoke about Champion South Africa and, the theme of champion people build champion nations, and the point that you made earlier, my success is your success, or a win for South Africa is a win for you.
Definitely.
What do you feel about that? And you've got 30 seconds to answer that because we're going to wrap up now.
So basically the long and short of it is that whatever I do impacts the country as a whole. The success of the country starts with my individual success. So I take a step forward, the whole South Africa moves forward.
And what's the one big thing we should get right now?
To act positively.
We should just act and act positively. Well, what should our national purpose be? Something we can consider. Well, look, your time's up, but you can come again, knock on the door, and the door will open up for you. I'm sure about that.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the opportunity and to the team as well.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a great thrill having you as well as having Nokukanya. But I mean, the broader picture is this, and that's a challenge I made to all of you. Is like, seriously, forget the day. Can we actively find a way to ensure that we have a national youth takeover every single day? And I don't mean literal takeover, but you know what I'm saying, to be able to create opportunities for people who otherwise will never, ever, ever get those opportunities? What are they? What about just, you can at least tweet me, because my day's over for today. Tweet it out. In terms of the show, lots to come. Thanks for being a part of it. Lots to come. I know there's sport coming up with Michael Abramson. He's going to have to talk about the Cricket World Cup in South Africa. And before that, Oliver Dixon takes over. What's it called? This Week, right? Or The Week. Either way, we know what the week was. The week was this week, last week, and the previous week, and the week before that. It's been the same thing. And you know what? I'll listen to it all over again because it's that important. Let's get the news now. It's 6 o'clock with Greg Hose.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Calls for the GNU to be finalised and screening for Mpox at ports of entry. Good evening. The IFP leader, Nkosini Hlabisa, has called on the DA and the ANC to conclude outstanding issues regarding talks on the government of national unity. He was addressing the media in light of uncertainty around the GNU. He's called on political parties to put their interests aside and the people first.
Like all South Africans, the IFP is growing concerned. Our concern is for a country that is eager to move forward. The work of governance must begin. We cannot remain in a holding pattern. It is essential that the President, as the Constitution allows him, be able to reach the stage of announcing the new cabinet. The IFP is thus calling on the ANC and the DA and any other party to conclude the outstanding issues between them without further delay.
Hlabisa says Ramaphosa must use the prerogative granted to him by the Constitution.
The IFP is of the view that whoever is involved should finalize the issues and the President accordingly use the prerogative that is granted to him by our Constitution. We know it's not going to be willy-nilly just appoint anyone anyhow, but he is engaging, and the engagement should not go on endlessly. It should reach a point where we get the country going forward.
Screening for Mpox is underway at points of entry across the country, including at the Lubombo port of entry with Mozambique. The Border Management Authority is screening all the people in an effort to curb the spread of the infectious disease. At least 16 positive cases of the disease have been confirmed in KZN, Gauteng and the Western Cape. 3 deaths have been reported nationwide. The authorities' Murdoch Ramatuba.
If travelers are found to be suspected of these diseases, they will be advised on the nearest health facilities that